buy green. Our government is taking the lead. The Philippines' Green Public Procurement Roadmap guides the way forward by considering local business capacities, climate, environment, health, and value for money. Our government procures thousands of items every year to serve the Filipino people. When government is the single largest buyer in a market, its procurement decisions influence the direction that businesses take. Green public procurement is about buying products which are low carbon, are healthier, avoid harmful chemicals, and are manufactured through cleaner processes. They are efficient to use and consume less energy and water. At the end of life, precious materials are recycled. GPP reduces the pressure on the environment. GPP is a partnership between the government and businesses. GPP opens up new, exciting, and reliable opportunities for businesses supplying green products. This in turn makes green products also affordable for private households. A first batch of 20 product categories has been prioritized for GPP, and more will be selected over time. The priority common supplies and equipment products are multi-copy paper, toilet paper, record books, cleaners, chairs, disinfectant sprays, trash bags, liquid hand soap, detergent powder, and LED lights and bulbs. The priority non-common supplies and equipment products are computer and laptop monitors, air conditioners, vehicles, fridges and freezers, copiers, paints and varnishes, food and catering services, training hotels and facilities, toilets and urinals, and textiles such as uniforms and work clothes. The well-established public procurement processes in the Philippines, such as the PhilJobs, will ensure fairness, transparency, and open competition for the green venture. Everyone can become an active consumer of green products, which save energy and water, are not harmful for health and climate, and which are recyclable.
Do you know that procurement is crucial in achieving our society's collective vision of a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life in the Philippines? Hello everyone, I'm Billy Bayong. Let me show you how our Procurement Policy Board innovates, adapts, and responds to our changing needs to enhance the procurement system and help the government work for us. An efficient, transparent, and competitive procurement system connects every Filipino to vital services from the government. This can help move more people out of poverty, gain access to better education, receive quality healthcare, and enjoy economic opportunities. These yield greater trust in government institutions and bring the country closer to achieving its national development goals. The Government Procurement Policy Board focuses on simplifying various processes to produce more successful procurement that contributes to the effectiveness and efficiency of the government. The board employs strategies to identify needs and implement projects. It refines and calibrates procurement policies, adjusting to emerging trends based on needs of procuring entities. It creates ways to capacitate practitioners to better manage their procurement processes, monitor effectiveness of our procurement systems, and it adapts to the times, especially during national emergencies. The GPPB has strengthened the procurement process at the earliest stage, the planning phase. The board has issued bidding rules responsive to new laws and policies set by the government. GPPB has also streamlined the bidding process through the use of technology. GPPB has introduced guidelines to ensure timely procurement, especially during a national emergency. GPPB Technical Support Office pioneered initiatives to better assist procuring entities. Simple simple and competitive, transparent and accountable, monitored by the people. These make for an effective procurement system, responsive to the needs of the people. The GPPB, adapting, responding, innovating for nation building. To know more about procurement, visit gppb.gov.ph.
Okay, so a beautiful morning to everyone. I am Jen Aguilar from the Capacity Development Division, and I welcome you all on the third day of our online training for the Municipal Local Government Units on Government Procurement Reform Act, or the Republic Act number 9184 and its 2016 revised implementing rules and regulations, brought to you by none other than the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office. But before we start, may we ask first our Zoom participants to change their name using the required format, and that is your municipality name, underscore your full name, for us to properly identify and monitor your attendance to this virtual event. Also, in order to maintain clarity and be able to properly manage the time, microphones shall be muted throughout the entire session. So to start off our today's program, may I suggest everyone to put ourselves in the most mighty and holy presence of our Lord Jesus Christ. Dear God, thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are truly grateful for them. Thank you for allowing us today to meet and share our knowledge and time with in this training. May you extend your divine wisdom to our speaker so that she would be able to impart effectively her God-given knowledge to all of us. May she be blessed as she continues to bring her expertise to people who need them. Bless the participants as well so that they would be able to glean the virtual information from this activity. May you bestow your blessing after this training so that we may go out and spread what we learned in the spirit of your love and generosity. So may we realize that this activity should glorify your name. Amen. So once again, a blessed Thursday morning to everyone. So now before we dive into our lecture proper, we prepared a short energizer for today's program. So what we'll be having would be 4 picks, 1 word. For sure, yung iba po sa inyo is familiar na po dito. So the game mechanics is very, very simple. So what are we going to do is we will be flashing on our screen 4 images, and all you have to do is identify the word related on the given images. So the words that we have chosen were all essential to procurement. So let's begin. For our first 4 picks, 1 word, we have, okay, ano po kaya ito? So we have a 4-letter word, and the only clue is letter L sa second box. So anyone po from our participants? So to our Facebook and YouTube live viewers, you may also participate by dropping down your answers to our comment section. Okay, let's check. So marami na pong nag-send sa ating chat box, no? So from Ma'am Joey, plan, LGU Dingle Iloilo, plan. Ano po ba ang tamang sagot? Can we show them na po? Okay, so the correct answer is plan. So for the next word, we have, ito naman po ang ating clue ay letter E sa dulo. So may makakahula po ba? So type in your answers, our Zoom participants, to our Zoom chat box. Okay, date. Tama kaya ang kanilang sagot? What is the correct answer? Okay, the correct answer is date. Ang gagaling ng mga participants natin, ha? So for the next word, we have, ano po kaya ito? Our clue for this word, we have C for the first letter. Cash, cash, cost by MLGU Burgos. Cash, cash. Can we flash the correct answer? Okay, so the correct answer is cost. So next word, please. Ito for sure maraming makakahula nito. Our clue is letter M as the third letter. We have time, 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 time. Tama ba ang kanilang sagot? Okay, so the correct answer is time. So for the next word, meron pa ba? Ito medyo lang na mahirap-hirap ng konti. So the clue is letter H for the first letter. Ano po kaya ito? Hope from LGU Kabugao. Meron pa po bang ibang magsasagot? Okay. Hope, hope, head. So what is our correct answer? So the correct answer is hope. So meron pa po ba? Meron pa po bang next? So I guess that's it. So thank you very much po for participating on our Energizer for today. So okay, so at this point, before we shift to the actual lecture proper, as promised, let us first have our early bird winners for today. So congratulations to our early bird participants from the Municipality of Dingle, Iloilo. We have Miss Annalisa L. Sobrevega. Ma'am, congratulations po. So for our next early bird, we have from the Municipality of Impasugong, Bukidnon, Miss Lerminda L. Noval. So congratulations po once again, and our event secretariat shall coordinate with you on how you may claim your special token. Also, for the winners of our last Tuesday's program, please do check your emails or chat box and kindly revert back with the details for us to share your respective tokens. Okay, now before we go ahead with our lecture proper, here is a quick recap of last Tuesday learning session. So last Tuesday, we had a very much productive learning session on procurement planning and budget linkage, including early procurement activities, whereas we had an extensive discussion on the fundamentals of procurement planning, where highlighted the project procurement management plan and annual procurement plan. Towards the end of the lecture proper, we had an in-depth discussion of the scope and applications of the conduct of early procurement activities led by none other than our GPPB recognized trainer, Leslie B. Peñafranca. So before anything else, we would like to apologize for the postponement of our learning session yesterday due to the pronouncement of work suspension brought out by the Typhoon Florita. So hence, may we advise our participants that our fourth learning session for the module on standard bidding procedures for goods, infrastructure projects, and consulting services will be moved next week, August 30, Tuesday. So again, our fourth learning session po on our module standard bidding procedures for goods, infrastructure projects, and consulting services will be moved next week, August 30, Tuesday. So please make yourselves available on August 30 because we assure you that most of your concerns and questions on the conduct of bidding activities shall be addressed in this module. So moving forward, today we will be proceeding on our fifth learning session of this virtual event, which shall be the entire session on alternative methods of procurement. So alam ko po, no, marami ang extra excited for today's learning session because this module is probably one of the most highly requested module in all our training sessions. So kaya naman po, no, let us ready our notepads and pens because today is going to be a one full pack learning Thursday. So without further ado, it is with great pleasure to introduce to you today's learning sessions resource speaker. So our resource speaker graduated magna cum laude, majoring in BS Accountancy, and had her Masteral Business Administration both at University of San Carlos, Cebu City. She is a certified public accountant and was a former regional director and procurement service regional depot supervisor of the Department of Budget and Management Regions 10 and 11 and has been in the government service for more than 42 years before she retired last June of 2020. She is also a recognized trainer of the GPPB since 2003. So ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome our resource speaker, Ma'am Annabel M. Atilio. Ma'am, take it away po.
Hello, Jean. Marinig ba ko?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Jen. Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to all participants to the fourth batch of MLGUs training on RE 9184. How are you all today? Perhaps many of you are excited, others are feeling good or tired. Whatever is your feeling, mixed feeling, may I request everyone that let's have a common denominator. And our common denominator is let us keep our mind open. According to Thomas Robert Dewar, a parachute functions when it opens. And therefore, keep your mind open to be receptive to new learnings or to accommodate additional learnings. Our topic today is alternative method of procurement, or AMP for short. But before the discussion proper, may I ask this question. Have you ever experienced in your life facing a crossroad? Or how many of you have seen the movie of Tom Hanks entitled Cast Away, where he was shown to be in one of the four corners and there were four roads leading to his residence. But because he was a victim of Alzheimer, he forgot himself, he hardly knows where to proceed to the east, to the west, or north or south. Many of us are like Tom Hanks. When you talk about procurement, we want to be perfect. We cannot afford to commit mistake. So we engage in over-analysis that would result to paralysis, meaning because of overthinking, we oftentimes delay the procurement, which is not good for the beneficiaries because there will be delayed delivery of service. But if you are equipped with the necessary knowledge, with the basic knowledge on procurement, you can always act with certainty despite all the many choices available. But remember, in government procurement, it is not as simple as choosing one of the choices. In procurement, specifically in AMP, it is a choice anchored on specific conditions laid down in sections 48 to 54, or as reiterated in Annex H of our revised 2000 IRR, which discussion is all devoted on the alternative method of procurement. Okay, so with that, let's start with the first slide. Hello. Uh, can you see my slide? Hello, Joe.
Hi, ma'am. We can see po your slide.
Is it already in full screen? Hindi pa.
Not yet po, ma'am.
Nawawala. Nawawala dito yung kuan. Okay. So I would suggest na andali ha. Okay.
Ma'am, sa bottom right po.
Bottom right. Okay. Oo. Meron sana ditong kandi ba? Meron sana ditong full screen. Nawawala.
Ma'am, yung nasa taas na lang po, merong slideshow.
Sandali ha. O siguro kayo na lang, ano ba ito? Kanina okay na to kanina. Okay. Okay, siguro, Joe, wala na dito yung mga buttons ko.
Okay, ma'am, we'll up na lang po yung yung
Okay.
presentation niyo po. And then,
Okay.
ma'am, mention na lang kung next slide na po, ha?
Okay. Sige.
Salamat, ma'am Ann.
Okay. So, Josh, mag-stop share na lang muna ako.
Yes, please, ma'am. Thank you po.
Okay na?
Yes, ma'am. Okay na po.
Okay, so, as I said, our topic today is AMP. So, in the meantime, you forget all your concerns outside, and this time let's get focused on the present topic, which is alternative methods of procurement. Next. Next.
Recording in progress.
This topic has two module objectives. So the participants are expected to get to know what are the 5 alternative modes of procurement and what are the differences between and among the 5. Secondly, you are expected at the end of the course, you can appropriately choose the alternative methods of procurement based on conditions, procedures, and requirements. Next. Okay, next. Hello. Ready, next. We have this outline. The first one deals with the general guidelines. And the second one deals with the conditions, procedures, and documentary requirements of the AMP. But at this point in time, I would like to advance information that in the second part, which is the documentary requirements, it will be shown to you, but there will be no more discussion because there is nothing to expound except it appears like a checklist. Okay, next. Okay, let's start with the first guideline, general guideline. Pursuant to Section 10 of the law and its revised 2016 revised IRR, the default or the general mode of procurement is competitive bidding. Therefore, the procuring entities shall take note of the word shall adopt competitive bidding as a general mode of procurement. However, the law is not that harsh, that we are fenced in Section 10. The law allows us in sections 48 to 54 to resort to alternative methods of procurement. Actually, what is being used in the provision, it says the procuring entities may resort to alternative methods of procurement. And therefore, it's not mandatory. And therefore, if you resort to alternative methods of procurement as the procuring entity may decide, you shall resort only in 3 instances. One, highly exceptional cases. Second, if you want to promote economy and efficiency, if it is costly to do it through public bidding, then you'd rather have it done through AMP. And the third one, not only the first and the second, but you need to conform based on the conditions and justifications specified in sections 48 to 54. Okay, next. Next. Further, you have also in section 7, it states, no procurement shall be undertaken unless it is in accordance with the approved annual procurement plan for the year. I would emphasize for the year because there are those copy paste only for the year as approved by the head of the procuring entity or his designated next in one. So it means you just discussed the procurement planning yesterday. This is the resultant of premeditated procurement planning. You should have the annual procurement plan because it serves as your Bible when you undertake procurement for goods, infrastructure, and consulting services. In that form, you will see that the fourth column reveals the mode of procurement that you're going to undertake for a specific procurement opportunity. Look at this slide. Column number 4 encircled with light green, and that is the mode of procurement. That will be the your guide when you proceed with the procurement. Next. Hello. Okay. So another guideline is the prohibition on splitting of government contracts. This is not a new provision. It has been there since the birth of RE 9184. And we were taught from that time that when we talk about splitting of the contracts, we always reckon from the authority given by the government to the agency head to enter into contract. And for us in the government, our term used for the national, it is allotment. But similarly with the LGUs, we call it also allotment. Therefore, if you are appropriated or if the Sanggunian has appropriated in the appropriations ordinance a lump sum of 4 million, you are expected to have it bidded once only. Otherwise, if you chop that, and the purpose of breaking it into smaller amounts is to avoid following the rules and regulations of RU 9184, or you want to circumvent 9184, so we can always call that a splitting of the contract. PB. It states that the mere act of dividing a contract into smaller quantities and phases does not automatically constitute splitting of the contract. And this ruling was born out of the query sent by the Bureau of Corrections. So the GPPB ruled that the procuring entities are authorized to divide a procurement project into lots if the purpose is to attract more participating bidders or you want to increase competition, provided you must ensure that doing so is not done to circumvent any provisions of RA 9184. Okay, next. This one, during the first day in Procurement 101, you had a refresher, or for those first timers, you learned that there are 5 principles of procurement in RA 9184, one of which is competitiveness. And the spirit of competitiveness is being carried to in Section 8. What does Section 18? What does Section 18 say? It says that reference to brand names shall not be allowed. Why? What's the reason why we should not allow reference to brand names? Because the moment you specify, you indicate the brand, you already stifle competition. So it means there is no more competition. You restrain trade. And that is the very reason why we are barred from putting the brand name in our invitation to bid, as well as in our request for price quotation. However, there is an exception to the rule. By virtue of compatibility with the existing fleet or equipment of the same make and brand, to consider also performance, functionality, and useful life of the government, the revised 2000 IRR in 2016 allows indicating the specific brand. Only in the case of yung sinasabi natin kanina, compatibility. What is a concrete example? For example, your printer, the brand is Epson. Naturally, you cannot use the consumable from other brands. Or if you had Red Fox printer, you cannot use also another consumable from other brand except for Red Fox or Brother or whatever. And the rule still applies also to the goods component of infrastructure projects and consulting services. The next one is delegation of authority. This is new in the 2016 revised IRR, and it is found in General Guidelines, Roman numeral 4 of Annex H, paragraph J. And it says that in the interest of urgency, in the interest of urgency, considering the attendant circumstances, for the procuring entity to expeditiously procure the needed items, the BAC in a resolution form may recommend to the head of the procuring entity for the latter's approval the delegation or the conduct of the following AMP to the end user or to any other appropriate bureau or committee. In other words, before the 2016 revised RR, there can be no delegation. Everything passes through BAC. Even with the 2016, it still passes through BAC, but there is a flexibility because of an emergency to be addressed. Then the BAC may recommend to the HOPE, which the latter may approve, to delegate the conduct of the following modes of procurement to the end user. What are these? So we have shopping, 52.1.A and B, so dalawang shopping. Then we have negotiated procurement. If you know very well that negotiated procurement, there are 14 sub-procurement methods. But what is included here, we have only 4. Negotiated procurement, emergency cases, negotiated procurement, small value procurement, negotiated procurement, list of real property and venue, and negotiated procurement, direct purchase of all and airline tickets. So these are the ones that may be delegated to the end user. Take note, it's not martial law. It's not mandatory, it's may. So if it will not be delegated, we can do nothing. So it shall emanate from the back recommendation in a resolution form to be approved by the House. Next slide, please. Okay. We know for a fact that under RE 9184, since 2003, PhilGIP's registration is required for both the procuring entities and on the part of the sellers. So PhilGIP's registration for procuring entities is free of charge. But when you talk about PhilGIP's registration for the sellers, manufacturers, contractors, and bidders, it's for a fee, minimal fee. Okay, let's have a review. I want to give you an output for those who are first timers. Before, there were 3 types of membership classifications of PhilGIPs. You have red, blue, and platinum. Red, color red, which means the only benefit, it can register online, but it can read only, for his eyes only, read only the PhilGIPs registration number. Then for the blue, with a very minimal fee, okay, aside from being available in the internet, you can view it. You can also print the hard copy of your PhilGIPs registration certificate. Then the last one is platinum. Platinum, aside from having a hard copy of PhilGIPs registration certificate, which you can print at your workplace, you can also upload the Class E documents. But the responsibility of making it current is the responsibility of the supplier, the buyer, the manufacturer, or the bidder. And finally, the third advantage is it can upload as part of its advertisement the product. Under RE 9184 sa 2016, anybody who joins, and that will be discussed next week on August 30, anybody who joins or participate in competitive bidding is mandatorily required to be a platinum member. But take note of this slide. It states that bidders are mandated to register with PhilGIPs and provide PhilGIPs registration number as a condition for award. So it means you don't need to have a PhilGIPs registration certificate hard copy. What is important is only the number as a condition for award. Okay, let's get to know what are these AMP. So we know that there are 5 alternative methods of procurement. Let's have a review. 1 is limited source bidding. 2nd is direct contracting. 3rd is repeat order. The 4th one is shopping. And the last one is negotiated procurement. Okay, look at the boxes below. So we have direct contracting, check. Shopping, check. The 5 remaining boxes all pertain, or they are all under negotiated procurement. And therefore, we say that the PhilGIPs registration number as a condition for award can be used only for direct contracting, shopping, and negotiated procurement under the following: takeover of contracts, small value procurement, lease of real property. I call this as CSAP ATM or ATMs, or scientific, scholarly, or artistic work, exclusive technology, and media services. Then we have highly technical consultant. So you can always go back to this slide in case you're confronted already with actual procurement opportunity, and refer that these are the only AMPs where PhilGIPs registration number is the only requirement as a condition for award. Okay, next. Okay. The next one is advertisement and posting of procurement opportunity. Okay, advertisement is very important, and that is a requirement. However, newspaper publication, there is a sunset clause in the 2016 revised IRR that shall no longer be required the newspaper publication after 2 years of effectivity. So let's read the first bullet. For alternative methods of procurement, the procuring entity may dispense with the advertisement in the newspaper and posting requirement as prescribed in section 21.2.1. So first, I'd like to discuss, there is a sunset clause. Newspaper publication shall no longer be required 2 years after the effectivity. So when was the effectivity of the 2016 revised IRR? Can I have an answer from the participants? Kailan, Bisaya man tanong, kanus na epektibo ang 2016 revised IRR? Hello? So based on record, it became effective on October 28, 2016. So let's count from October 28, 2016 to October 28, 2017. That's 1 year. Then October 28, 2018, that's the second year. So effective October 29, we don't require. It is no longer required to have a newspaper publication. And the only exception is if there is failure to post it in your website or in FieldJeps, that you need to go back to the newspaper. But I think most of us have experienced that if you resort to newspaper publication, that is costly. And we are already cash-strapped with the pandemic that we have. So that is one. The second one is, bakit sinabi dito may be dispensed? Kasi if it is 50,000 and below, you can dispense with the advertisement. The second one, however, in the following alternative methods of procurement through the back secretariat, invitation or advertisement or procurement of posting of procurement opportunity shall be posted. What are these? Okay, check the 5 alternative methods of procurement. Limited source bidding, check. Shopping, check. How about the remaining 3? Sandali, excuse me. How about in the remaining 3? How about in the remaining 3? We have 2 failed bidding, small value procurement, and NGO participation. So the 3 are all under negotiated procurement. Therefore, we are now told that while these are alternative methods of procurement, but there is a requirement to post the following procurement opportunities. If you undertake limited source bidding, if you undertake shopping, negotiated procurement to fail biddings, negotiated procurement small value procurement, and negotiated procurement NGO participation. Where do you post this? It shall be posted in Philippines website, procuring entities website, that's for electronic posting, and we can have the physical posting in a conspicuous place in the procuring entity's premise. Very important. For a period of how many days? For a period of at least 3 calendar days. I repeat, for a period of 3 calendar days, where PhilJep's website, procuring entities website, and conspicuous place in the procuring entities premise. Okay, next slide. I think 2 more slides. Okay. Hello? Okay, further. Next slide. Next slide. Hi. Next slide pa. Next. Okay, this one. If you remember, the slide which I discussed pertains to advertisement and posting procurement opportunity. And the next slide that I'm going to discuss, I will discuss that at the bottom first, is the posting of notice of award, contract, and notice to proceed. I want this to be discussed hand in hand. We're now talking, the first one where we're talking about procurement opportunity, where all those who participated, okay, nandoon. But this one, this is already a stage where there is already a winning bidder. So we are required to post the notice of award, the contract, the purchase order, including the notice to proceed within 10 calendar days from their issuance. So take note, kanina advertisement or procurement opportunity, we are required to post it within 3 calendar days. On the other hand, we have now the winning bidder, and the winning bidder, we issue the notice of award, we sign the contract or the purchase order, and the notice to proceed, which the law requires us to post it within 10 days from the issuance. Where will you post that? The same mode of means of posting. We have the PhilJobs website, the procuring entity's website, and physically in the conspicuous place in procuring entity's premise. But there is an exception to the rule. What does it say? Except for contracts with ABC of 50,000 and below. In many trainings which you conducted, others were misled. They always say 49,000. No, it's 50,000 and below. So it means if the contract is above, so start with a preposition. If it is above 50,000, it needs to be posted. Is that clear? Okay, another guidelines, the first slide, the first box. And when we apply AMP, we have to see to it that it is most advantageous price for the government. If you still remember, in the second slide which I presented, highly exceptional cases, one. Second is to promote efficiency and economy. So it falls doon sa pangalawang reason. It states, in all procurement activities, we shall ensure that we get the most advantageous price for the government. And the second one, okay, we have to be very careful. Sometimes we're overwhelmed to acquire an equipment or whatever, or to undertake this activity. But we forget about the IUEEUI of COA. So what is listed in the revised IRR is UEEU, unnecessary, excessive, extravagant, unconscionable expenditure, where there is an existing guidelines by COA, but they have already expanded this. Instead of UEEU, they have now illegal, unnecessary, excessive, extravagant, unconscionable, and irrelevant. And we, as part of the procurement team, we should always bear that in mind, because it's very difficult if the auditor has a different appreciation of our procurement, and once it will disallow based on IUAU, it's very difficult to defend. Okay. Pwede balik doon sa transparency. Back mga 2 slides. Okay, back. Okay. We are reminded dito. We are reminded that since the government runs with the principle of transparency and accountability, we are reminded of our transparency and accountability requirements under our 9184, and that is reiterated every year in the General Provisions Act, the GA, which contains the national budget of the government, including the resolutions of the GPPB. Next. And next, please. Okay. So when we talk about procurement opportunity, so ito ron yung sinasabi. We're reminded to post the invitation or request for submission of price quotations in PhilJEP's official websites and social media platforms. Okay, next. And shown differently, next pa. Next. Okay. Kanina, the slide spoke of the means of posting the procurement opportunity. This one is about the post-award information. So all procurement-related documents should be posted in PhilJEP's agency's website and social media platforms. So in your case, in the case of the LGUs, no problem because each LGU is a separate entity. But there is a problem with the national government because there are national government agencies, regional offices, which cannot post on their own. You need to articulately coordinate with your central office because they establish only one website for the whole department. Okay, next. Hello. You will see in the first column the document or information document. Then in the next 4 columns, you have where to post, website, PhilJEP's and procuring entities website, and conspicuous place for physical posting. For the first 3 documents, that shall be posted completely in the 3 sites. 1 PhilJEP's, 1 PS website, and physical posting in conspicuous place. But there is one. The notice of suspension of the conduct of procurement activities is or should be posted only in the PES procuring entities website. Why? Under GPPP PB Resolution 09-2020, the BAC is given also the power to suspend procurement opportunities because of the pandemic. Diba? Why? If it is hardly possible for bidders to hand carry or to submit the documents, and it is physically impossible for the members also to be there, despite all this video conferencing or whatever. So it means it can suspend the conduct of procurement activities. This is what we mean. But at the same time, the BAC is given also the authority to issue the notice of resumption once the restrictions are lifted. Okay, next. Next slide. Okay. Timeline of submission of documentary requirements. Most of us take for granted when we float the request for price quotation. The contents of the price RFQ, we normally indicate what are the items to be bought, the technical specifications, the ABC period. Don't forget that you should indicate as a footnote or whatever note, please indicate the duly filled up RFQ shall be returned to GPPB-TSO or to the municipality of certain municipality, not later than this date. Why do we have to do that? Because we want to adhere to our procurement calendar or procurement programming for the year. Otherwise, the sellers will just let us keep on waiting for 2-3 months. So nawawala na tayo sa target natin. So it's very good that we have to indicate that we have also timelines in the submission of the duly filled up RFQ. And not only that, you can even include what are the documents that they have to submit before the notice of award or even before payment. Okay, next. Next slide. Okay. So I will dispense with this slide. Why? Because on the first day, you had a specific topic on the efficient procurement during a state of calamity, as well as in quarantine implementation. Okay, next. Next. We will dispense with that one that was already discussed on the first day. Okay, knowledge check.
Thank you,
Jen?
Ma'am Annabelle.
Okay.
Now, as discussed, we will be flashing series of knowledge check questions through the Zoom polling feature, and all we have to do is choose the appropriate answers in the pop-up poll that shall be flashed in our screens. So, may I request our technical team to flash our first knowledge check question. The question is, the conduct of the following may be delegated to end user unit or any other appropriate bureau, committee, or unit duly authorized by BAC through a resolution approved by the HOPE except A. Lease of real property, B. Small value procurement, C. Two failed bidding, or D. Emergency procurement. So the conduct of the following may be delegated to the end user unit or any other appropriate bureau, committee, or unit duly authorized by BAC through a resolution approved by the HOPE except A. List of real property, B. Small value procurement, C. Two failed bidding, and D. Emergency procurement. So cast in your answers for our Zoom participants to our Zoom polling feature. And for our Facebook and YouTube live viewers, you may also participate by dropping down your answers on our comment section. So we have 45%, 50%. I hope the Zoom participants participates sa ating mga knowledge check questions, no? So that we can check if meron po ba tayong natututunan on our module sessions. Okay? So if you are experiencing technical difficulties, please let us know through our Zoom chat box, and a member of our technical team will directly coordinate with you to address your concerns. So we will be closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Can we share the result, please? So the results are, for A, we have 8%. For B, small value procurement, we have 23%. For C, we have two failed bidding, 62%. And for D, emergency procurement, 8%. So the correct answer for this knowledge check question number 1 is letter C, two failed bidding. Congratulations po sa lahat na nagsagot ng letter C. So Ma'am Annabelle, can you please elaborate po the answer to this knowledge check question? Back to you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Tama. So the 62% got the correct answer because in the sixth slide that we discussed, we say that the conduct of the following may be delegated. And what are these following AMPs? Sabi ko kanina, shopping, check. Negotiated procurement, emergency. So check yan. Small value procurement, check yan. List of real property. And the fourth one is direct purchase of poll and airline tickets, but not the failed biddings. It cannot be delegated. Okay, Jen, back to you.
Thank you very much po for elaborating the correct answers, Ma'am Annabelle. So we will go back to our lecture proper.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, this time we're going to discuss the conditions, procedures, and documentary requirements of alternative methods of procurement. But before that, let me share you this short story. As I told you, I interviewed a lot of procurement practitioners. They always had a problem on AMP because of the choices. So I told them, have you heard about the story of a son, father, and a son? When a father asked his son, Do you have something soft drink? Then the son answered, "Do you want soft drink or hard drink?" Soft drink. So what soft drink do you want? Pepsi, Sprite, Coke, or True Orange? Coke. Okay. Should it be bottled or in can? In can. In can. Shall it be regular Coke, Coke Diet, or Coke Zero? Until finally the father was bothered and said, "Okay, I don't want soft drinks anymore. I want water." "Okay, if you want, father, we have bottled or a free flowing water." "Bottled. So what do you want? Mineral water, purified, or distilled?" "I want distilled." "So you have to choose distilled from Absolute, from Wilkins, or from Nature's Spring." And the father said, "Oh no, I'd rather drink water from a free flowing faucet." So, as we proceed with the discussion on the conditions, procedures, and documentary requirements, take note, as I said in my introduction, in procurement, it's different. It's not an ordinary choice, but you have to choose appropriate alternative mode which is applicable to the instant case of your procurement on hand. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's have a review. Let's act as children. Okay, can we say it verbally? Can we say it together? Because learning starts with listening and secondly, verbalizing. Okay, can we have it? Okay, what are the 5 alternative methods of procurement? First, we have the limited source bidding. I cannot hear you. Second, direct contracting. Third, repeat order. Fourth is shopping. And the fifth one is negotiated procurement. I would like to give the highlights of each to give you an idea of what are these. Although some of you are already practicing this, but for the new ones, at least they would also know. So limited source bidding. There is the word bidding. Limited source bidding is more or less the same with competitive bidding. The only difference is there is a direct written invitation to pre-selected set of suppliers. All the rest, which you have already put into practice and which you will also enhance on August 30, all stages in competitive bidding, the same with the limited source bidding. The second one is direct contracting. Direct contracting is always labeled as the simplest mode of procurement. Why? Because you deal only with one supplier. It does not need elaborate procurement document. Period. Then I would proceed to shopping instead of repeat order. Shopping, we have only 2 conditions. Common use supplies and unforeseen contingency. With threshold. Negotiated procurement, I tell you, 60% of our time will be devoted in negotiated procurement. Why? Because there are 14 sub-methods of procurement under negotiated procurement. Okay, the last one, repeat order, the one found at the center. Why? The last one to be discussed. Because repeat order is unique from the first 4 which I mentioned. Repeat order can only be resorted to if all the 6 conditions set forth by the law are present. The absence of one condition, you cannot proceed. All or nothing. You cannot proceed with repeat order. But unlike in LSB, in the contracting, in shopping, and negotiated procurement, the presence of one condition is already adequate to give you a go signal to proceed with that mode of procurement. Okay, next slide, please. Let's start with the first one, the limited source bidding. The limited source bidding has another name. We call it selective bidding. And the second box is it makes it different from competitive bidding because of the direct invitation to pre-selected suppliers or consultants. Okay, it's applicable to goods and consulting services, and these are the conditions. Take note. That is applicable to highly specialized equipment services, such as navigational equipment, for example. So not all stores, not SM, S&R, Robinsons, and etc. sell navigational equipment. In fact, here in Cagayan de Oro, for several months after the opening, there were lots of flights canceled. The plane could not land at the time because of the absence of navigational equipment. While the BAC already decided to choose or recommended to choose the navigational equipment, but the board decided to have it confirmed. So they really went to South Korea. And when they went there, they saw and found out that one of the best airports in the world is from Korea. So that was the time it was finally installed. So that is an example of highly specialized equipment service. The second one is major plant components. During the time of the late President Ferdinand Marcos, the biggest steel plant in the Philippines, I think not only in the Philippines, but in Asia, was the National Steel Corporation, located in Iligan City. But through the years, something went wrong that the government had a shutdown and finally decided to sell it to a private sector. And the only successful buyer came from India. And now it is called as Global Steel. But at the time after the purchase, it was not able to immediately operate. It has to rehabilitate major plant components. And they cannot just advertise wanted engineer, because unlike before, we had only three types of engineers: civil engineer, mechanical engineer, and electrical engineer. But as of now, we have systems engineer, electronics and communications engineer, and a lot more. Therefore, when they needed to rehabilitate the plant, they have to be specific, not just engineer, but something which can suit, can conform to what that plant really needs. Okay, next slide. Okay, I mentioned about pre-selection. There are provisions in the law which already dictate the procuring entity. We have no more choice, but the law itself has spoken. For example, in the case of DepEd, every year they allocated millions of money for the production of desks and chairs. And each regional office is allocated millions. And in the special provision of DepEd budget, there is always a condition. Say, for example, for this lump sum, 15% shall be made available to cooperatives which are engaged in the manufacture of desks and armchairs. So you cannot have it up for other bidders, but only for cooperatives, because the law has already spoken. And there's another one. It states, say for example, 10% of this amount shall be made available only to persons with disability, but are engaged in the manufacture of desks and armchairs. So who are we to depart? Who are we to deviate from the provisions of law? The pre-selection is already indicated in the law. But in the slide that I'm going to discuss now, this is not dictated by the law. The pre-selection is done by you which is based on capability and resources to perform the contract, taking into account the following. What are the factors? For example, you're talking about consultancy, of course, the experience, the performance, if it is the case of infrastructure, performance on similar contracts, qualifications of the personnel, availability of their equipment. Another example, very good example, there was a time when DPW centralized public bidding in order to generate savings. But what happened? There was only one bidder who won most projects in Visayas, Mindanao, and even in Luzon. Can you imagine? Bridge, not a jumbo bridge, it took almost 1 year to finish just to find out the equipment registered during the post-qualification are the same equipment in Davao, in Cagayan de Oro City, and somewhere in Luzon. And that is difficult. We have to be very careful also. We need to post-qualification. You look at the serial number. Then manufacturing facilities, if we're talking about the manufacture of goods, for example, if you say, okay, manufacturing facilities, wala pala silang ganito. We thought, mayroon. Then the last one is financial, among others, financial position. Very important. If the ABC is 500 million and the net worth is only 50 million, it's a big no-no. So these are some suggested parameters when you establish pre-selection. But I know in the LGUs, because you are also unique, you can have your own parameters in addition to this one. And those pre-selected suppliers, please relay that to GPPB because they maintain also a website where we can visit and access who are the pre-selected set of suppliers. Question. Next. Next slide. Okay. Who prepares the pre-selected list of suppliers and consultants? The answer is, of course, the relevant government agency expert in the government procurement. However, in their absence, you, the procure entity, through your BAC, with the assistance of TWG, shall prepare the pre-selected list. How to prepare that? In the previous slide, there were already suggested parameters, but you can enhance and have your own. Next. Okay, so we're through with limited source bidding. We're now proceeding to direct contracting, which I told you always labeled as the simplest mode of procurement. Similar to limited source bidding, it has also another name. We call it as single source procurement. Why simplest? It does not require elaborate bidding documents and no complicated stages. Offer may be accepted immediately after some negotiations. Direct contracting is applicable only to goods. And these are the following conditions. Items of proprietary nature. For example, intellectual property, invention. So you need to have it patented so that others will not copy. If you're a writer, to avoid plagiarism, have it copyrighted so that others will not copy. In fact, I was really amused when my children told me there is already a plagiarism test when you prepare, when you write a thesis. That's good. That's a good improvement. Then the second one is critical components from a specific supplier. Okay. The example I gave you, if it is Epson, of course, you need to have an Epson also. Or if your car is Toyota, you cannot have an RFQ or you cannot have a public bidding and the winner of a certain important part of the machine, of the engine, is so. It cannot be. So there should be compatibility and therefore the critical components shall come from a specific supplier. items sold by exclusive manufacturer. A very good example is early detection machine, early detection of cancer machine. Not all manufacturers produce this kind of equipment. Nag-iisa lang. Nag-iisa. Okay. Then we have the documentary requirements. As I told you, you can read it there, but I will not discuss each one. There is nothing to explain, but it's a mere checklist. So you can revisit that when you have a copy, soft copy of the presentation. Mayor's permit, field registration, ITR, only for ABCs above 500,000. Next, please. What are the procedural guidelines in direct contracting? We said the simplest because there are no complicated stages. Firstly, what is stated here is end user shall conduct survey. And I would like to enhance during the procurement procedures, you should not conduct the initial survey because in the strict sense of the word, the market survey shall be conducted during the pre-procurement. So the appropriate term here is end user shall update the conduct of survey of the industry. Next, through the back secretariat, prepare the RFQ, send it to the direct supplier, then conduct simplified negotiations, and finally, recommend award of contract. Simple. Why simple? For example, if you talk about books, you don't have to talk to many suppliers. There's only one author which is copyrighted. So, very simple procedure, and you can immediately proceed to negotiation. Okay, next. Okay. Okay, before the repeat order, can you write it down in your notes where T, all in capital letters, W, E, letter T, and I, where T. W stands for water, E for electricity, T for transparency, and I for internet service provider. So before the repeat order, we were discussing about the direct contract. If your LGU, there's only one that maintains and operates, and maintains the water system. In most cases, because they're all coming from municipality, that is run by the LGU. Although very, very few LGUs that I know, that since they don't have the capability to operate that, so it's being run by the private sector. In that case, where there's only one, you procure water by means of direct contracting. Same with electricity. If it is located in a far-flung area or in an isolated island, there is only one electric company. You procure also electricity through direct contract. Telephone, same with telephone. Only one supplier? Yes, direct contracting. Internet service provider, only one in the locality? Yes. But if I'll bring in my experience in Cagayan de Oro City, way back 1979, the city had hardly good communication network. We filed a request at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're advised to go to the telephone box at 12 o'clock. At that time, I could say that was direct contracting. But at the time, there was the RE 9184. But nowadays, with a lot of telcos around, Smart, we have Sun, we have Globe, etc. So, their contracting is no longer applicable dito sa Cagayan de Oro City. How about the internet service provider? I have a friend who said, a teacher, you know, my friend, I want to be connected through Signal. because in our place where she resides, but where she resides, very excellent daw yung connection. But she is teaching in a remote area. So I told her, do not dream about something which is not present in your assigned place. So even if you love signal, if it does not have any infrastructure on connection, be contented with smart. So yun ang ibig sabihin. So WETI, W, water, electricity, telephone, and internet. There's only one provided in your place. Procure it by means of the contract. Okay, repeat order. Next slide. Repeat order is unique. Sabi ko kanina, repeat order is unique. Why? Because unlike the four, the presence of one condition should, you can already go. That's already a go signal. But in repeat order, it's not. All or nothing. The absence of one will not allow you to proceed with repeat order. And one very prominent condition about repeat order is you can undertake that only when the previous purchase was done through competitive bidding. Through competitive bidding, and you have the repeat order from the previous winning bidder. Repeat order, just like recontracting, is applicable only to goods. Next. Okay, next. In repeat order, there are 6 conditions. What are the conditions? And this all shall be present. The first one, which I already advanced kanina, the previous purchase, the original contract, was awarded through competitive bidding. So competitive bidding is the first condition. The second one, the price should not be higher, but it should be the same or lower than the price in the original contract. Okay, for example, you buy a PC, 12 units at 45,000. You do it through competitive bidding. So after the pandemic, you go back to the supplier and said, we want to have it repeat order. But the supplier says, okay, the price now is 46,000. Kasi everything goes up. So in that case, it will not qualify because the law says the price should be the same or lower. Then the third one, there should be no splitting of the contracts. And I will not elucidate about the split of the contracts. We have already talked that in the general guidelines. The fourth one is you avail of repeat order within 6 months from the date of the NTP. Why are we discussing about NTP? Remember the first condition, the original contract was awarded through competitive bidding. Therefore, you reckon the counting of 6 months from the date of the issuance of notice to proceed. The fifth condition is it shall not exceed 25% of quantity of each item in the original contract. I'll go back to my example. There are 12 units that you purchased through competitive bidding at the same price. There was no splitting of the contracts within 6 months. Question: if after this training, when you go back, the mayor has requested you to buy 5 units of PC in walking repeat order, what will you respond to the request of the LCE? Anong sasabihin mo? No, flat no, or yes? Hi. Hello. So let's go back to the example. How many pieces, how many sets did you buy? 12 units. 12 units divided by 4 or 25%. 12 units, what is our quotient? 3. So it means if the request is 5 and what is allowable is 3, so what is your answer? Are you still with me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Okay, so what's your answer?
It's no, ma'am.
Okay, your answer is no. How about from others? Uy, dala ko magbibisaya, bisaya man ta. Uy, siya ay man daig ayo, siya ay mga tabisaya sa Mindanao. Okay, the answer is not a flat no. You say, okay, Mayor, we can buy the 5, 3 from repeat order, but for the remaining 2, we'll look for another mode of procurement. Okay, the last one, it must be quantifiable, divisible, and consisting of at least 4 units per item. But there is one that is being qualified. You can have a repeat order if there was already partial delivery. How can you have a repeat order when the order is still there in the cloud? There should be partial delivery and it was already inspected. Back to this 6th condition. May I ask you, if you have catering, food catering during your in-house training, can you apply repeat order? If the previous was done through competitive bidding, it's within 6 months, it's not splitting of the contracts, then the price is the same, it's not exceeding 25. So what is your answer? Others will say, Ma'am, no. Why? Because we bought lechon. We cannot chop up it only up to 4, but into bites. And we cannot count also the strands of pancit. But the question is, when you purchase meals, how do you do that? What is the main consideration? It's the number of packs. And after that, that's the time that you choose the menu. So it's a number of packs. Can you divide the packs? Yes. And therefore, that is applicable. Okay? I'll go back to the 4th condition. There is a condition that it shall be availed only within 6 months. But GPPB has issued a ruling that it is not applicable as an exception to the rule when there is an existing contractual obligation. And the example cited concretely is the case of cell phone. Many of us, whether personal or official cell phones, when we go to the telco, we are required to sign a contract, which all of us, including myself, I don't dare to read because of the fine print. So according to GPPB, in that case, the 6-month requirement is an exception to the rule, is waived in the case of cell phone where there is an existing contractual obligation. Okay, next slide. So I repeat, in the repeat order, all conditions should be present. Question, what stage and procurement process can repeat order be considered to be within the reglementary period of 6 months? Okay, it should be reckoned from contract effectivity date, which should in no case be later than 7 calendar days from the issuance of MTP, provided it is duly approved, the mode of procurement that is already given. It's approved by the HOPE, and the previous winning bidder supplier has been notified before the lapse of said period. I just want to have one important thing, which I failed to discuss at the start. So we're talking about the AMP, but the first slide tells us or reminds us that the mode of procurement, which is the default, the general rule in section 10, is competitive bidding. So in case you move from the competitive bidding to AMP, you need an administrative document that would translate the departure from the competitive bidding to AMP, and that is what they call back resolution. Recommendation by the back to the HOPE. Naalaala ko kasi tuloy may nakalagay dito. And duly approved by the HOPE. Yes, you cannot have the AMP without having it approved first by the hook. Okay, next question. Next slide, I mean. So we are now in shopping. Okay, ang shopping is different from our layman's concept about shopping, that we just pick up supplies, etc., and have it refunded, reimbursed, or what. But shopping, as contemplated under the law, is applicable only in two instances. One, if it involves unforeseen contingency, and the second one involves common use supplies. Okay, I'll discuss first the first one. Section 52.1.a. They call it shopping A. The common use supplies is called as shopping B. The first one, okay, these are the documentary requirements. You just read that when your permit and field trips registration. The first one has three conditions. Okay, can we proceed with the next slide? Okay, in shopping A, take note, it involves unforeseen contingency. And therefore, if it is unforeseen, normally it's not included in the annual procurement plan, which is already approved. So we in the procurement team should always be alert, alive, and kicking, that therefore later on it shall be included in the APP and ultimately integrated in the APP. So it's unforeseen. It can be good or it can be bad. Kung ang gulong ay pumutok, kung ang ligid ni boto, kung ano mo pangayua, therefore that is unforeseen. If there is a visit from the newly installed President of the Philippines, that is a good news, although it's also unforeseen. So the condition is it should be unforeseen. Second, it requires immediate purchase. Of course, when you have a staff which is sick of dengue and it needs only 1 hour to have her infused with additional bag of blood, and therefore the driver was rushing so that the life of the personnel will be saved, but in the process of his driving, one of the tires burst. So what happened? It can immediately get another tire. Okay, it needs immediate purchase to keep you running. Okay, and the amount does not exceed 200,000. Okay, unforeseen contingency one, it needs immediate action and does not exceed the threshold of 200,000. Okay, shopping B, on the other hand, it involves ordinary or regular office supplies available at procurement service. Okay, in previous trainings, there were participants who questioned, why are we including PS? So just a refresher in your case, that LOI 755 was signed into law by the late President Ferdinand E. Marcos, who saw at that time, during his time, that some of the common use supplies such as paper sold in Manila, the price is doubled, tripled, or how many times when it reaches the regions or other parts of the Philippines. So it was during his time that the procurement service was created purposely to undertake bulk purchase of common use supplies for distribution to government instrumentalities, not for free, but for a fee, to answer for the freight and handling. Okay. Therefore, we mention anywhere in RA 9184 the purchase of common use supplies because LOI 755 is carried to, is embodied in RA 9184. Excuse me. Okay. So back to the slide. We are all mandated, all government instrumentalities are mandated to purchase common use supplies at procurement service. What if when you go there, it's not available? So we always say that the only cure is before you leave the procurement service, you secure the certificate of non-availability of stocks because it will serve as your evidence, as your license when you're asked by the auditor that you buy from outside because it's not available. And the threshold is 1 million. But my friends, with the pandemic that we have, securing SENAs from PS is suspended in the meantime that we are not allowed to have the face-to-face. Siguro as of this time, most of us are already relaxed, but I tell you the update. A lot of personnel in other offices in Manila as well as in other regions nagka-COVID positive. So, ingat-ingat tayo. So, itong SINAS na to will not be secured face-to-face from PS. What is required under GPPB Resolution number 17-2020 is you try to view the website of PS and check whether the supplies are available. If not, then you print that and that will serve as your attachment when you proceed procurement outside. And when I say you proceed procurement outside, it's not automatic with a SUKI. What are you going to do? You prepare 3 RFQs, have it distributed to 3 suppliers, bona fide suppliers, not fly by night. Okay, next. Oh, next slide, please. Hello. Okay. So in shopping A, I already shared this with you. The threshold is 200,000, and shopping B, the threshold is 1 million. Take note in shopping B, it involves only common use supplies. And we are already familiar about the definition, but I'll just repeat. Common use supplies are those which are repetitively used in the operations of your offices, of your LGUs. Not only that, but included also in the electronic catalog of procurement service. Okay, next. These are the thresholds. Find for yourselves your LGU. It varies from first class to second class, whether you're a province, you're a city, or municipality. Okay, but constant is for barangays, the maximum amount is 50,000. That is for shopping A. Okay, next. Then for shopping B, we have also varying thresholds from provinces, city, municipalities, from first class to sixth class. Barangays stand still at 50,000. Okay, next. What are the procedures? Very simple. The RFQ will be sent directly to the supplier. Please write in your note 1, 1. 1 is phase 1. What does it mean? So when you have this shopping A, due to the urgency, due to unforeseen contingency, you are not required to float 3 RFQs. You need only 1 RFQ and you need to retrieve only 1. So that is what is meant by 1, 1. And posting of the RFQ may be dispensed with. Always go back to section 21. Kasi sabi dito, yung amount should also be considered. Okay. However, in shopping B, pakisulat sa your notes nyo, 3 space 3. Meaning, the RFQ or the BAC is required to float at least 3 RFQs for 3 suppliers and retrieve at least 3 price quotations. Then others will say, what if they will not respond? So there is a provision you can extend the deadline. What if nag-comply na sila? Ang laman pa rin is not applicable. So it does not comply with the requirement of quotations because what is required here is really price quotation. Yung 3 is just the minimum. You can expand it 5 or 6, depende sa need ng LGU. Okay, next. Hello. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are down to the second knowledge check. Jen?
Yes, ma'am. Tama po, no, ma'am. We are down on our second knowledge check. So before we proceed with our question, for instances that Ma'am Annabel is asking questions po, Zoom participants may respond through the Zoom chat box. And we would like to acknowledge as well Sir Ronnie Ocampo from the Municipality of Cabugao, Apayao for his participation a while ago. So moving on po, for the most awaited part, we will be having our price knowledge check question. So may we ask our participants to type in their answers to the Zoom chat box. Again, the GPP BTSO will give another special token to the first participant who will answer the question correctly. So please take note that only participants following the required name format shall be qualified, and those who were given special tokens already will not be considered to give way to other participants. So our question is, in case of shopping 52.1A, the bank shall send the request for quotations to at least 3 suppliers of known qualifications, and at least 3 price quotations must be obtained. Again, in case of shopping 52.1A, the bank shall send the request for quotations to at least 3 suppliers of known qualifications, and at least 3 price quotations must be obtained. So key in your answers onto our Zoom chat box. So let's check. So mostly ang sagot is letter B. From MLGU Compostela, we have B, false. MLGU Colimbio, Cabugao, also false. So we have from LGU President Carlos P. Garcia, true, false. So let's check. Okay. So for this knowledge check price question, sorry for that. The correct answer is letter B, false. So, Ma'am Annabel, before we announce for the winner, can you please elaborate po the correct answer?
Okay,
Back to you,
thank you,
ma'am.
Jen. Congratulations to the winners. You got it right, 67%. Okay, do you still remember when I told you, jot this down, 1, 1, and 3, 3? I say that in shopping, we have 2 types. Section 52.1.A, which we call as shopping A, and the next one is shopping B. So shopping A, we say 1, 1, and shopping B, 3, 3. So the question revolves about section 52.1.8, which is shopping A, which I state that in case of unforeseen contingency, which needs immediate action, and the threshold does not exceed 200,000, all you need to do is float one RFQ and retrieve only one. But the question here has misled you by telling you, okay ba to? Tatlong suppliers ang sa RFQ at saka tatlong price quotations. So naturally, your answer of false is correct. Congratulations again.
So to acknowledge our knowledge check winner for today, upon verification and validation of the technical team, we would like to congratulate Mr. Edward Ford and Dagatan from the Municipality of Compostela, Cebu, for answering the correct answer. So for our winners of special tokens, please check your messages and our event secretariat will contact you on how you may claim your prizes. Okay, Ma'am Annabel, thank you so much po again for elaborating the correct answer for this knowledge check question. We now resume our lecture proper.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we are now in the last topic, which is negotiated procurement. So, simply seen in the slide before, there are only 5 alternative methods of procurement: limited source bidding, direct contracting, repeat order, shopping, and negotiated procurement. Simple 5, but actually, if you look into the contents of negotiated procurement, there are 14. So meaning 5 minus 4 plus 14, 18. Can you imagine? We have to discuss the 14, but let's have this agreement. Out of the 14, I will discuss thoroughly the 10 which are commonly applicable to LGUs. The last 4 will be discussed last. These are the Defense Cooperation Agreement, NGO participation, community participation, and United Nations agencies, international organization, or international financing institution. I repeat, I will be discussing 2 failed biddings, emergency cases, takeover of contracts, adjacent or contiguous, agency to agency, scientific, scholarly, or artistic work, exclusive technology and media services, highly technical consultants, small value procurement, lease of real property. Then I'll jump to direct retail purchase of petroleum and airline tickets. The last will be discussed quickly because these are not applicable in the case of LGUs, not very applicable, although a few for NGO and community participation. Okay, can we have the first slide? For the negotiated procurement, the first sub-procurement method is 2 failed bidding. You know for a fact that there can be failure of bidding pursuant to Section 35 and also to Section 41. But what is applicable in this negotiated procurement of 2 failed bidding is condition number 35. It states that there has been failure of competitive bidding or limited source bidding for 2 times. So if there is failure only for once, di pa pwede. Dapat at least 2 times. But the counting of 2 shall be confined only to Section 35. This one is applicable to goods, infra, and consulting services. What are the conditions in Section 45? 1, there is failure of bidding. When you advertise, you have not received any bids. Second, mayroon nag-participate but they are declared ineligible. Third, nag-participate, all are eligible, but they failed to comply with all the bid requirements, or they are post-disqualified during the post-qualification process, or there is no successful negotiation. And the last one is, mayroon na sanang nanalo, but refuses without justifiable cause to accept the award or no award was made. Okay, next. So those are the 4 conditions of the failure of bidding pursuant to Section 35. Next slide, please. Hello. Okay. But as I have forewarned you, the counting of 2 failure does not include the failure of bidding as declared by the hope. If you still remember, we have Section 41, which is a reservation clause. What does it contain? It contains that the hope can abort at any stage in public bidding, provided it is short of award, under the conditions set forth in Section 41. So why short of award? Because no procuring entity can just abort bidding after the award. Otherwise, you'll be facing lawsuits. Once you have already an award, there's already a contract. Kaya nga, it's very specific in Section 41, before the award. And there are grounds. The first ground where the head of the procuring entity can abort it is one, if he has observed that the back has not followed the rules and regulations of procurement per RA 9184. Second, there is a collusion among back members or among suppliers or between suppliers and back. The third one is it will place, if the procurement will push through, it will put the government at a most disadvantaged situation. And remember, we said one of the general guidelines, we have to see to it that the price should be advantageous to the government. If you have only one supplier, he can always demand for any price. So we don't want to have it. And the last one is hope can abort at any stage of public bidding short of award. If there is no more legal basis, no more allotment, is that possible? Yes. It happened in March 2020. When we had our budget already approved for 2020, and we were visited until now by COVID, the government was looking for funds because every centavo was already in place in that approved budget. So what the national government did was to write to all government agencies for them to revisit which of the approved plans and projects they have to suspend, terminate, or partially implement during the year, provided it can finish within the year. Parallel to that action by the national government, the LGUs were required also to revisit your annual investment program and reprioritize because we need funds at the time to address our concern on the pandemic, which is stalling lives of our people. So yun, if there is no more legal basis, because that letter resulted to withdrawal of allotment, so why was true? But that, I repeat, that declaration of failure of bidding by the Hope is not considered in counting of 1 and 2 failure of bidding. Okay, so you should anchor it on section 35. Okay, so what are the procedural guidelines? As I said, there should be at least 2 failed biddings. Second, kung dalawa na, if there is failure of bidding for 2 times, there is a requirement by the law for back to conduct a mandatory review. You should conduct a mandatory review. Bakit ang failure? Mandatory review on terms, conditions, specifications, including the price. Just in case the reason is price, the procuring entity is allowed to increase the ABC not exceeding 20%. After that, so you proceed the RFQ, invite at least 3 suppliers, get the best offer, recommend and award the contract. Merong in red dito, sinabi, observer shall be invited in all stages. But try to relate this with the role of observers in the first day in Procurement 101, where there are only listed activities where they have to be present. Okay, next. Next, please. The second one, isang anak ng negotiated procurement is emergency cases. When we talk about emergency cases, we are confined to 3 items. One is imminent danger to life or property during a state of calamity. When we say imminent, it's not actual yet. If your house is located at the foot of the hill or at the foot of the volcano, and when it starts to spew some of those inside the volcano, then those living at the foot of the hill may say, hindi pa delikado, di pa may delikado. Mulagpot man siya 2 to 5 kilometers. But we call that danger as imminent danger. It's coming. It's forthcoming. So in that case, that is one example. Or another example, if your municipality has a river and due to abolition, sige flash flood, there are formation of islets which people wanted to build house. Una, Patayo na sila ng bahay. Ngayon, another flash flood. They would say, will not vacate because the level of water is no. There is already an imminent danger. So take note the factor that back should remember in imminent danger. You should ascertain that there is a declaration of a state of calamity. I repeat, there should be a declaration of a state of calamity by competent authority. And in the Philippines, if the coverage is national, it's the President of the Philippines. In the case of a specific LGUs, it should be the sanggunian concerned, including the sanggunian barangay, provided you follow the prescribed guidelines issued by DILG. Okay. The next one is time is of the essence arising from natural or man-made calamities. Okay. So sometimes we take for granted, okay, yellow, orange, okay, what is the level of water? But the time is of the essence. Or, for example, because of flash flood, the only bridge that connects from the mainland to that municipality was destroyed. That's the only bridge. And time is of the essence that you should have another bridge because most of the students from that thickly populated municipality are studying in the mainland, or most of employees there are working in the mainland. So you need to restore. You need to restore immediately because of time element. Or let's have this example, food poisoning. So what are you going to do when you have food poisoning in town? You don't have to wait and observe. Time is of the essence. Okay, let that establishment, okay, stop it. Or if it is caused by water, stop it. Why? Otherwise, everybody who drink that water, okay, will be a victim of poisoning. So immediately, there is an urgency. There is an urgency to address the emergency on hand. Okay, another one is when there is an emergency, an immediate action is necessary to prevent damage to or loss of life or property or restore vital services, infrastructure, facilities. Take the case of Yolanda Node. For several days or weeks or even months, many places were disconnected in terms of communication facilities. They did not have light, but the government was trying its best to restore through the private sector with the help also of the private sector. These are some examples because we cannot afford that if we do not intervene, if the government or the private sector will not intervene, it would mean loss of life or more damage to property. The example I gave you a while ago is about the infrastructure facility building the bridge. Okay, next slide. We have some reminders. The first reminder is when we invoke negotiated procurement emergency, always remember about the timing of the proximity of time between the actual procurement activity to be conducted and the emergency stock. For example, you want to buy rice for your constituents. Inangyari 7 months after the calamity. Hindi na, you cannot invoke already negotiated procurement emergency. Why? Layo na kaayo. 6 months. Or I'll go back to my example of the construction of bridge. Any LGU would claim and invoke about negotiated procurement because it was destroyed due to flash flood, but constructed it only many months after. You cannot invoke negotiated procurement emergency. Why? Because of the second bullet, it says, if the reason or cause for the emergency has already been abated, adoption of competitive bidding shall be considered. Otherwise, kung talagang emergency, right there and there, you implement. You don't have to wait. Then the third one, ito na yung sinasabi ko kanina, when the ground is based on imminent danger to life during a state of calamity, There must be a declaration by a competent authority of a state of calamity before any procurement activity may be undertaken. Okay, next. Next slide. Okay, so these are the documentary requirements. Mayor's permit, pickup license in the case of infra, NFCC for infra, income tax return, etc., with all the qualifications and OSS. You can just read that. I don't have to explain that. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is an update on GPPB Resolution 03-2020. Although partly discussed in the first day, but I did not discard this because it talks about negotiated procurement emergency, which is part of my topic. So, with the declaration of the state of public health emergencies in the Philippines because of the presence of COVID and due to confirmed transmission of the same, there were things that happened in procurement service. First, DOH requested for the inclusion of as part of the common use supplies. Those, for example, face mask, face shield, disinfectant, and others to be part of the common use supplies. Because before COVID, nobody knew, even the richest country in the world. Everybody was taken aback with the COVID and how to address that until we finally have this vaccine. And it's also included in the 2016 that negotiated procurement emergency cases shall be updated, and this is the reason why we have some issuances immediately after this COVID-19 came to our country by updating the negotiated emergency purchase as part of the negotiated procurement. Okay, so next. Okay. So in the same GPPB resolution, we dispense with the required written confirmation by the Hope in the use of NP emergency cases. Do you still remember the first questions in knowledge check? Delegation of authority. Because of the urgency to address the concerned problem, confirmation by the Hope may be dispensed with. Delegation of authority. So, kasama doon yung negotiated procurement emergency, provision of immediate response and initial recovery steps, inclusion of list of real property and venue as part of negotiated procurement emergency, not just the ordinary list of real property and venue, inclusion of COVID-19 items in the list of common use supplies. Ito yung sinasabi ko. Okay, including ancillary service. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are the steps. While we recognize that it is an emergency, but we should not depart from the cardinal rules that everything that we purchase shall be found in the ATP. But with the COVID-19, when everybody was taken aback, kahit emergency, it should be included in the APP. The only difference here, if you look at this one, excuse me, very fine. So it says here, in the meantime, that it's not included in the APP, we can already commence, and this is only for COVID, we can commence already with a procurement, with a negotiation, I mean. But finally, once funds are found, funds that can finance the items that will be used to address the emergency, then it shall be included in the APP. So once it's included in the APP, it signals that there is already funding. The second one is it's about the delegation, and what are the documentary requirements. And finally, sobrang liit, no? Hope, okay. Okay, it's about delegation. Okay. So, hindi ko basa, sobrang liit at saka I cannot enlarge the point. Okay, so there are 4 steps. Let's just revisit later if we still have time. Okay, next. Okay, negotiated procurement is applicable to 3 goods, infrastructure, and consulting services. First, the procedural guidelines. It always emanates from the end user. On the first day, the slide there does not include the end user. To be a lecture about procurement 101, my question is, sino bang nakalimutan na one of the actors in procurement? Yun, nakatago doon sa likod, sa door. And that is the end user. So in case of negotiated procurement emergency case, the first one who knows what is needed or what are needed is the end user. So immediately the end user shall prepare the purchase request. And that necessitates the revision of the APP. You can have the APP as discussed in procurement planning. And finally, validation of available budget for the purpose. That is mentioned in the previous slide, which we left. So there should be funding before it will be finally approved in the APP. Then the third one is walang hassle. There is a direct negotiation with legally, technically, and financially capable supplier contractor, then award of contract. Next. Okay, next. Okay, the third knowledge check. Okay, Jen, please take it away.
Yes, ma'am. So we are now on our third knowledge check question. So you know the drill. All we have to do is choose the appropriate answers in the pop-up poll that shall be flashed in our screen. So the question is, in negotiated procurement emergency cases, the BAC may directly negotiate with the supplier, contractor, or consultant with technical, legal, and financial capability to deliver the goods, execute the works, and perform the services to address the emergency requirement. Is it A, true, or B, false? Again, in negotiated procurement emergency cases, the BAC may directly negotiate with the supplier, contractor, or consultant with technical, legal, and financial capability to deliver the goods, execute the works, and perform the services to address the emergency requirement. So A, true, B, false. So cast in your answers. Again, for the YouTube and Facebook Live viewers, you may also participate by commenting the answer through our comment section. So while waiting for others to cast their vote on our poll, so for any questions related to our module session today, please feel free to drop them down through our Zoom chat box. And for our Facebook and YouTube live viewers, again, you may drop them down on our comment section. So our resource speaker, Ma'am Annabelle, shall discuss all related questions later in our open forum. So we shall close our poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let us share the result, please. So for A true, we have 93%, and for B false, we have 7%. So the correct answer is letter A, true. Ma'am Annabelle, can you elaborate more the correct answer po? Back to you po, ma'am.
Okay, it's true. The answer is true. Congratulations to the winner. Why true? Considering that this is already an emergency case, the BAC is already authorized to negotiate directly with the supplier who is legally, technically, and financially capable. But the condition here is there should be an APP. Okay. updated APP. Okay, thank you, Jen.
Thank you, ma'am. We can now proceed po to our lecture proper.
Next slide. Okay, so still related to COVID-19, we have GPPB resolution number 06-2021. Siguro most of us were wondering, including myself, who stayed at home for more than 2 years. I asked myself, how come that we have different types of vaccines? Mayroong Pfizer, Moderna, we have Sinovac, Sinopharm, AstraZeneca. So I was asking myself, but just silently because I cannot circulate. So we're talking now here about RA 11525 or COVID-19 vaccination program of 2021. There are some rules which are, let's say, which are made flexible, although it's under negotiated procurement, but these are made flexible in the case of the procurement of vaccines. So the very purpose of RA 11525 was to expedite the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines. Not only that, including its ancillary services and goods. For example, sirens, storage, transport, deployment, and administration. So it is considered as negotiated procurement under emergency case. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay, the COVID-19 vaccines, if you have been watching TV, okay, there were those pushing for the immediate purchase, but under that RA, only through DOH and NTF, National Task Force Against COVID-19, is given the task to negotiate. However, the ancillary supplies and services, such as storage, transport, deployment, and administration of COVID-19, as defined by DOH, that is delegated. Okay, next, so that we will understand better. Okay. Delegated, not only confined to DOH, as well as to National Task Force. Next, please. I think the discussion is in the next. Anyway, I'll just discuss this first. So this is what I told you. While we have the general rules in the negotiated procurement emergency, but under GPPB Resolution 06-2021, please observe what are those which are not, I would say, not in conformance with the usual guidelines we had. Why? Because there is an urgency to address the emergency. First, we have negotiated procurement emergency case as the procurement modality to be reflected in the annual procurement plan. That's what I told you. Kahit emergency, don't forget that that would still be included in the APP. Second one, while we recognize under normal circumstances before the COVID, we recognize that you cannot commence procurement. In fact, in public bidding, the first one is pre-procurement. And one of the questions there is to determine the readiness, meaning you should check whether there is an approved APP. But look at number 2. The procurement may commence. This is about vaccination. Huh? Procurement may commence without an approved APP, subject to validation of funds for the purpose and submission of the approved APP prior to payment. You still remember what I told you a while ago? In the case of the national, everything was already in place. Same with the local. Most of the local have already their appropriations or ordinance in place. For 2020. So meaning, where do we get funds So that was the reason why you had to revisit your annual AIP. You have to reprioritize so that you can find funding source for the vaccine. Um, can you make the difference? In ordinary procurement, we cannot commence without an approved APP. But in this case, because this is emergency, procurement may commence kahit wala pang approved APP. But it doesn't mean that we will not come up with a requirement of APP. In the meantime, na wala pang APP, procurement may commence at the same time busy looking for funds that can fund for the vaccine, provided there should be an approved APP prior to payment. So payment is the ultimate measure. APP is required prior to payment. The third one, documentary requirements that we have mentioned in previous slides under the negotiated procurement emergency shall not apply to COVID-19 procurement. Why? Because this will be determined by DOH and NTF in their negotiations with the supplier. So yung standard natin, hindi na masyado ma-apply but depende sa negotiation ng Republic of the Philippines and the manufacturer. Republic of the Philippines as represented by the National Task Force and DOH. Okay. Look at number 4, advance payment. Ano ba itong advance payment na to? Do you still remember advance payment? The first time 9184 came out, per PD 5094, the advance payment was good only for infrastructure as may be approved by the President of the Philippines. Magkano? 15%. The advance payment, we call that before as mobilization fee. However, it was expanded by GPPB that advance payment for goods was allowed only during the time of calamity. And that was also 15%. Anong sinasabi? Provided you negotiate only with one supplier. Second, that supplier is in good standing. Third, that supplier has already an experience transacting business with a concerned LGU. And there is, of course, not a mandatory requirement, and preferably, it comes from the place where the calamity is declared. So yun ang 15%. And added to that, due to industry practice, GPPB also allowed advance payment of 50% in the case of hotel accommodation and in the case of training. So yun lang ang allowed. Infra 15, goods in the case of calamity 15, then due to industry practice, 50%. In all other cases, not allowed. But look at number 4. What does it say? Advance payment may be made up to full cost of the contract price if the same is required by the supplier, manufacturer, distributor, or service provider. In my opening statement, when I started discussing about vaccine, I said I was wondering why we have varying brands of vaccine. It's because no supplier can respond to the needs of vaccines of even one country. And it was on a first come, first served basis. If you watch TV, there were times the NTF, the vaccine czar were waiting at the airport because there was already a schedule for the delivery, but nothing came. And I was able to hear it over the radio. It's because already packed, but other countries intercepted and made full payment. So, saan tayo where do we stand as a poor country, as a not well-funded country? So we have to buy it from different suppliers. That is why the requirement of advance payment is relaxed in the case of vaccines. Otherwise, we cannot save the lives of Filipinos if we adhere to the original provision requirement of advance payment. Dito sa vaccine, it was relaxed. Ang sinasabi na, pwede na mag 100% full payment if it is the requirement of the supplier. Okay, next slide. Next slide, okay. And there is a requirement of posting. So posting requirements for vaccines for the OH, okay. Indicate the ABC, the name and details of procured vaccines, the name of supplier, amount of advance payment and reasons, and amount of awarded contract. Should be done within 30 days after execution of contract. You can just imagine the work of DOH, saving lives and at the same time all these requirements. But we have to do that because we are in a government full of transparency and accountability. Okay, next slide. Okay, takeover of contracts. It says here, in case you have already a winning bidder, for no reason at all, the winning bidder nawawala, does not ginoghost. So the term of mga bagets, mga Gen Z, ginoghost ang kuan, ghosting. Nag-ghosting sila sa mga procuring entities. So there are safety nets already embodied in RE 9184. Sinasabi dito that BAC shall post, qualify, and negotiate starting with the second lowest calculated bid or highest rated bid in the case of consulting services at the bidder's original bid price. So you will not increase, same price. Then, if it fails, negotiate to the third lowest. So I repeat, you have a winning bidder, nag-ghosting siya. So the law says, okay, negotiate. You post, qualify first, the second lowest, offer the same price. If it is okay with him, that's good. What about if it fails? Okay, you negotiate to the third. What if the third also refuses? So ito na, itong sa right side. Ito yung sinasabi. Invite a short list of at least 3 suppliers to submit bids and negotiate starting with the lowest calculated or HRB and resort to any other appropriate alternative methods of procurement. Okay, next slide. So these are the documentary requirements. Okay, can we now proceed to the next slide? Adjacent or contiguous. In Bisaya, dool, masumpay. Okay. So this is applicable not to goods, but applicable to infrastructure and consulting services. And these are some conditions, provided the subject contract is adjacent or contiguous to an ongoing civil work or consulting service, where contractors and consultants have unique experience and expertise to deliver required services. So these are the conditions. The original contract is a result of competitive bidding. Subject contract has similar or related scopes of work. Third, it is within the contracting capacity of the contractor. Then refer to the documentary requirements for infrastructure. Question, pwede ba magkaroon tayo ng negotiated procurement adjacent or contiguous if we have 2 projects, both are already finished, one at the left and one at the right. Both are finished. We want to connect the 2. Is that okay under the law? Diba karamihan, yun ang project ng ginagawa ng mga legislator natin. Okay, ito road network, tapos na. You put a gap there because I don't want, so the new legislator will say, put a gap there. I don't want that my project will be connected with the project of the previous legislator. Tapos na rin. So here comes a new elected. Can the newly elected say, okay, I have a project, I will invoke negotiated procurement adjacent or contiguous? Is that possible? The answer is no. Why? Because it says in the condition that the subject contract is adjacent or contiguous to an ongoing civil work. So dapat, okay, next slide for the next discussion. Dapat, it should be ongoing. Hindi pa natapos yung isa, then you can have the next project under negotiated procurement adjacent or contiguous. Okay, so these are the conditions. The price will be the same or lower price than the original contract. ABC of contiguous or adjacent work involved should not exceed the contract of ongoing project, and the contractor undertaking the ongoing project should have no negative slippage. Take note of the last one. Negotiations shall have commenced before the expiry of the previous contract. Okay, the sum of the value of remaining works of the existing contract and the ABC of the contiguous shall be also considered. Okay, next one. Agency to agency. Time check is already 10:30. Okay. Agency to agency. Madaling i-discuss. How many of you were asked by your auditor, why are you patronizing the products of procurement service? If you look at section 10, it says only competitive bidding is a general mode of procurement. If you look at the alternative methods of procurement, there are 5. 1, limited source bidding, direct contracting, repeat order, shopping, and negotiated procurement. There is no mention about procurement service. Okay, so your answer should be, we buy a procurement service, you invoke the AMP, or negotiated procurement, agency to agency. Ito yung sinasabi dito sa background. There are agencies, government agencies, which are created with a mandate for a specific purpose. For example, the PS was really created to undertake bulk purchase of common use supplies for distribution to different government instrumentalities. Or if we expand in government bureaucracy, the recognized department which is an expert in infrastructure is DPWH. No agency can snatch that. DOH, DepEd, many times they want to have their hospitals constructed by them or school buildings because of one reason or another. But we go by the mandate. So they are adept in infrastructure, in the construction of horizontal and vertical projects. Question, if your LGU does not have the capacity or capability to construct a building, you don't have an engineer, you don't have organic personnel, you cannot hire consultants. So you can have a MOA with DPWH or with another government agency. But we have here the conditions. 1, you must justify entering into A2A with servicing agency by saying that it's more efficient and economical to the government. So my usual example, when I was still with DBM Region 10, the building was good only for 2 stories. The third one, rooftop. But we needed additional facility for meetings and seminars. So I talked to the lead secretary, Andaya, and he agreed, okay, I will bring in savings from the central office for you to be able to construct the third floor. So while discussing with the back, I told them, since 99% of us here are certified public accountants, we're not engineers, we're not civil engineers. So we can be easily cheated, outsmarted by contractors as to the thickness of the galvanized iron, nails, etc., etc. So I told them, can you consider having a MOA or MOU with DPWH? So we just intensify the monitoring. So we did that. But we need also to consider that the servicing agency, DPWH, should have the absorptive capacity to undertake the project, meaning DPWH itself, or any agency for that matter, has also set of target and goals for the year to be achieved. Meaning, if they will accept the MOU, it means they should not sacrifice their own projects. They should not sacrifice their own mandate. So, in addition to their goals, they can still accommodate, and that is what we call absorptive capacity, to undertake our project. And another condition is those who are planning to have A2A, see to it that the servicing agency has the necessary tools or has the access to equipment or tools. Do not agree if they keep on asking, okay, can we buy this equipment? That is not allowed. Because after the construction, we will not be using all those. So that is one requirement, that the servicing agency should have the necessary tools or they have the access to the necessary tools and equipment. Okay, next. Okay, these are the procedural guidelines. A2A is applicable to goods, infrastructure, and consulting services. One, the first one is the end user. So remember, the end user is the trigger of procurement. Do not take them for granted. The end user shall justify to the bank that it should resort to A2A because it is more efficient and economical to the government. Second, the end user shall secure the certificate from the relevant officer of the servicing agency that the latter complies with the condition that it can still accommodate and they have access to tools. The third one is the bank shall issue a resolution recommending the use of A2A to HOPE for consideration for approval or disapproval by the HOPE. Okay, next. Next slide. Then we have CSAW ETMs. I call the CSAW ETMs, or as my acronym, for my consumption only. Scientific, scholarly, or artistic work, exclusive technology and media services. So applicable to the three goods, infra, and consulting service. Before this was formally embodied in the 2016, most of the recognized speakers or trainers had a problem. We were consulted by presidents of state colleges. Where can we possibly put, or what is the most appropriate A&P if we want to subscribe journals from abroad? Because we want our state colleges to be at par with international universities in other countries. So we candidly responded at that time, okay, you just look for appropriate A&P and talk to your auditor. So fine, and we have also from LGUs, very common question. We want Sarah to hire the services of Sarah Hieronimo. So what is the appropriate A&P? You always advise you just talk to the auditor where you can possibly place that kind of service in the A&P. And finally, I am very happy that it's included in the 2016 revised IRR. Wala nang haka-haka. They can safely invoke negotiated procurement CSAW ETMs. Okay, for example, when you procure the work of a painter, for example, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, we know for a fact that these are valued assets. So they buy the olden paintings, but which cost let's say not an ordinary price, but priced as valuable assets. Then we have LGUs looking for a performer during araw ng munisipyo, araw ng barangay, etc., etc., Okay, diretso na. You just invoke negotiated procurement, CISAW ETMs. For researchers, for example, so we have PSA. They want to have the statistics, the data of other bulletins of other countries. They want to have also the academic and scholarly researches for the issues is scientific, so they can invoke negotiated procurement, CISAW ETM. And during the pandemic, very relevant. Resuscitators, yung life-saving equipment, diba? Incubator, incubation, yun ang common na naririnig natin. So, you don't have to do it sa public bidding, but because of the urgency and time element, you can purchase it through negotiated procurement, CISAW ETMs. Okay, next. Next slide. Okay. Same with the next box. For example, media documentation, advertisement announcement. So, from the IR, pay your taxes promptly. There is more fun in the Philippines from Department of Tourism. For DOH, mass, iwas, etc. And a lot more. And you can have it aired through television or radio or a newspaper or even in social media, communication media. So wala nang hassle. Then the last one, I want to elaborate on the last one. I had experience in the June 11 where we never knew from the start na ganun pala yung sitwasyon. So it's an early detection of cancer. Yun pala, siyempre ang DBM, we judiciously allocate funds. So since that was the only proposal, we allocated amount for that equipment. The following year, bumalik yung chief of clinics, ma'am, yung infrastructure dapat okay. We cannot have a supplemental budget right now. Cash-strapped ang national government. So you better ask additional amount on central office. Ma'am, it's an infrastructure. So that was the time that I started to listen. Na yung palang ganon, it should be sourced from one supplier only. Bakit? It's not an ordinary infrastructure. The supplier of the equipment is the only one authorized at saka alam niya what are the required thickness, kung ano mga specifications na paglalagyan ng yung early detection machine for cancer. Tapos, pag ma-install na yan, another problem. It has to be tested, etc., train the staff. So it will take, kung sa budgeting pa, 3 years. So I told him, next time when you make a proposal to your central office, you tell them that this is the whole package. Otherwise, mag-lapse na yung sa equipment, mag-lapse na yung, wala pa yung pangatlong feature. In fact, they also requested for the creation of physicists. I was asking them, physicists, di ba, that's only good for issues? No, ma'am, we're going to have the position in coming up with the best or the most accurate target. Kung which part of the body, kung saan siya na-locate. Otherwise, if we will miss in the computation, so iba namang problema. So this is an example na the construction or installation of a certain equipment shall be sourced from the same contractor. Because not all contractors know about that. So that is an example of CISAW ETM. Okay, next. Hello. Okay, so these are the documentary requirements. Mirrors permit. Okay. Okay, just read that. Okay, next slide. Okay, applicable to the free procedural guidelines. I repeat, during the procurement proper, you need to update the market survey because for me, it's already too late if you make a market survey when you are about to buy. That should be done in procurement planning. Okay, then direct negotiation with the suppliers, so very simple, then award of contract. If you want Sarah Hieronimo, Martin Rivera, etc., or other performers or singers, you can do that. Just invoke negotiated procurement, CISAW ETM. Next. Next is highly technical consultants. This is also new. With due respect, with the LGUs that raised problems with our office, karamihan. So if we are a newly elected uh, local official, so you don't work comfortably with those already there. So ang ginawa nila, they have already an organic personnel in place with appointment, permanent status of appointment. Okay, they will hire somebody. Okay, budget officer, you will be reassigned in another department. I have this consultant, parang ganun. But before, that was not allowed. You hire only a consultant if the expertise is not obtaining among the organic person. Pero yun ang usual practice. Okay, planning officer, you stay in assessment and I will have another consultant. Okay, you are in charge in back or whatever, you go to the provincial jail and become a warden. So, naging problema. But while we recognize it as a problem, but at the same time, the government wants to help them also carry out their functions. So finally, mayroon tayong provision in 2016, which allows the hiring of consultant who is legally, technically, and financially capable, provided the following conditions are met. It involves the nature of work involves highly technical or proprietary or primarily confidential or policy determining. Itong phrase na ito, where trust and confidence are the primary consideration. So we are talking about an individual consultant. So if you're the LCA, new LCA, you do not know anyone in the organization, simply you want to work comfortably, okay, you have your consultant. That is allowed, but the term is at the most 6 months renewable. 6 months basis, renewable at the option of the appointing hope, but in no case shall it exceed the term of the latter. So in your case, the term of local government officials is 3 years. Okay, so dapat the consultant should talk to the hope whether ma-renew pa siya or hindi. Okay, next. Individual consultant. So these are the documental requirements, mayor's permit, then down to filter registration number. Okay, next. So, okay. Let's skip muna sa DCA. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Small value procurement. Okay, you have your notes. Put there 3-1. 3 space 1. You still remember what AMP did I discuss where I said 1 space 1, then 3 space 1. You still remember shopping? Shopping A, float 1, retrieve 1. In shopping B, float 3, at least 3, and retrieve at least also 3 price quotations. This one is under negotiated procurement. We're now talking about small value procurement. This is not covered under Section 52. Why? Because in Section 52, it talks about common use supplies. In small value procurement, it does not include common use supplies. Take note, because I have interviewed some and yun ang confusion nila, small value procurement or shopping B. So take note, shopping B is 3-3 and it involves common use supplies. The negotiated procurement, small value procurement, does not involve common use supplies. Threshold the same. 1 million, we have also 1 million. Question. What are the non-common use supplies? For example, from the barangay, ma'am, pwede ko mangayo pwede bang hingi ng Senate for lechon? We cannot issue that. Why? Because it's not part of the common supply. At saka, yung definition natin is those which are repetitively used in the daily operations of your LGU, plus these are included in the electronic catalog. So lechon, hindi po siya pwede. So since it's not part of the e-catalog, not part of the CSE, we will not issue SENA. Then teachers will also get inside, Ma'am, how about sports equipment? It's not also part of the CSE, but not part of that e-catalog. So that falls under small value procurement. How about musical instrument? Because we teach music. Same with musical instruments. Or construction materials, drugs and medicines. Hindi siya kasali. So in short, in small value procurement, although it has the same threshold with shopping B, which is 1 million, but it talks about non-common use supply. So saan papasok ang sri-sri? You are required in shopping B to float 3 RFQs and retrieve at least 3 price quotations. But in small value procurement, you are required to float 3, but retrieval of 1 is sufficient or adequate, is compliant to the requirements of the law. Okay, so small value procurement is applicable to goods, infra, and consulting services. What are the procedures? Prepare the RFQ and send it to at least 3 suppliers, contractors, or consultants, and those above 50,000 RFQ shall be posted. Sinabi ko na kanina, 50,000 and below, hindi siya pwede. Start with a preposition above. Above 50,000 needs to be posted in PhilJeps, as well as in this website, as well as in the conspicuous place. Okay, you float 3, look at the last bullet. Receipt of at least 1 quotation proposal is sufficient with the evaluation. So yun ang sabi ko kanina, 1, 1, 3, 3, and this one, 3, 1. Okay, next. Next slide. So this is the threshold for LGUs. It also varies, but barangay is still 50,000. So depende sa class, depende sa LGU, if you are a province, city, and municipality. So for classification, we have 1st to 6th class. So varying amounts, you can revisit that later. Okay, next. These are the procedural guidelines. Prepare an RFQ. If it is above 50,000, post in the website in PhilJeps. If it is not above, so meaning 50,000 below, di na kailangan i-post sa PhilJeps. However, if, okay take note, i-post sa PhilJeps ang pinag-usapan natin kanina, posting of advertisement or procurement opportunity. How many days? 3 calendar days. That is for AMP. But if we're talking about public bidding, which will be discussed next week, that would be 7 calendar days. Take note, meron ditong asterisk. Extend deadline if no quotation is received. Okay. Or kung kulang. Send RFQ to at least 3 suppliers. Receipt of 1 RFQ will suffice. Prepare abstract of quotations, then award. Okay. So yun ang procedural guidelines. Next. Okay, these are the documentary requirements. So if I were you, you already prepared the documentary requirements as a checklist and have it ready so that anytime if you have procurement, just pick it up. Okay, next. Negotiated procurement list of real property and venue. Okay. Based on our E9184, when you talk about real property, it speaks not only of the building, including the land or soil where the structure is erected or built. Okay. So it means when you lease for office space, that's part of that. But venue is different. Venue refers to halls, conference areas, or areas for seminars. Take note, that should be attended by government officials and employees. So, meaning intended really for government. And for real property, before you immediately decide that you're going to lease this kind of or rent this kind of building, you should conduct cost benefit analysis so that you'll be able to arrive whether it is more efficient and economical. And in fact, you're encouraged to do the CBA, the cost benefit analysis, before the renewal. But I would suggest that you come up with your own parameters because you're the ultimate user, you're the ultimate beneficiary. What are some of the parameters? For example, proximity of the office to hospitals, for example, or to the highways. Is it accessible to the transportation? How about the illumination? How about the ventilation? How about the supply of water? How about the number of CRs? How about other amenities? Is this lessor branded as somebody who does not respond in case the lessee will have a problem on the elevator? Pag walang suga, does it have a generator, etc.? You can come up with your own parameters based on what you really need. Ito talaga yung isang pagbabago sa 2016 revised IRR. In 2009, IRR, di ba tatlo ng IRR natin? The first one, effective October 8, 2003. The second one, September 2, 2009. Ito na ngayon ang pinaka-latest, 2016. In 2009, all IRRs prior to 2016, it tells us about the technical specifications, which is minimum requirements of the end user. But with the 2016, there is a big shift. It tells us about, instead of minimum, ang nakalagay doon, necessary requirements of the end user. That's why I'm telling you, I encourage you to come up with your own parameters because after all, kayo yung end user if you will rent the building. Oh, let's proceed with the venue. For example, you undertake training in a hotel. You check as to the accessibility sa transportation. How about the training hall? Does it have 2 doors? One for entrance and one for exit. So PBOX as well as BFP would require that dapat isang entrance, isang exit in case of emergency. And as much as possible, the door should be swing. Swing. Pwede pagawas, pwede pasulod. How about audio? Does this hotel have an audio which is audible to the participants? How about the number of CRs? Do they have enough number of CRs? If the capacity of this is 100 or 200? Libre ba ang whiteboard marker? You consider also the security factor, etc. So there is in Appendix B. Appendix B, you will see that there is a list of technical specifications that can help you determine other parameters. Sa lighting pa lang, makikita mo, is it conducive to training or for dining? How about the tables? Round tables ba? Or rectangular? Is it designed for parties or designed for training? And many more. Okay, so what are the procedural guidelines? Invite at least 3 within the vicinity. Okay. But the receipt of one quotation is sufficient to proceed with the evaluation. Okay, next. Next slide. Okay, list of real property, still list of real property and venue. We are all encouraging the government to list publicly owned. But I tell you, what will prevail is your parameter. Kung mura siya, barato siya, because it's owned by the government, but it's located at the top of the mountain or interior, not accessible. Then the facilities are not still in place. So you would rather decide on the basis of the parameters that you have listed. After all, preference lang. Entering into contract with the government is only a preference, assuming all things are equal. If things are equal, naturally, we can proceed entering into contract with the government. But kung malayo sa parameters nyo, kung malayo sa necessary requirements ng end user, then don't do not force the issue to list with publicly owned property. Okay, in the renewal of list of real property, I already said that earlier, it's very important that you make the lessor aware that we in the government should not be taken for granted. That's why before the end or expiration of the contract, you need to conduct a CBA. Are you contented with the kind of service they have? Or they're very good in receiving and increasing the rental. But they don't listen to our complaints kung masisira yung CR or yung elevator or yung light or whatever. So yun. Okay, next. Next slide. Oh, these are the documentary requirements. Okay, next. Okay, can we skip NGO participation? Okay, next. Then skip also community participation. Hello. Continue with the next slide. Next. Next pa. Next pa. Next slide. Next slide pa. Okay, ito. This is more practical and very applicable to LGUs. Since 2003, until October 27, 2016, there was no specific guideline that would support our action on the purchase of all petroleum oil lubricants as well as airline tickets. Bakit? Kasi the purchase of coal, the guidelines issued was only for bulk purchase. And therefore, that was applicable only to the ND or to the uniformed men or perhaps the kaap. And they need also bulk coal. But in most government offices, we do not use bulk fuel. Even the LGUs, except perhaps for Bukidnon. Sa Bukidnon, most of them, they have their own stock of fuel. Siguro because in terms of malalaki yung mga ira sa Bukidnon. But you'll find out that effective October 28, 2016, we're thankful that finally GPPB, upon the recommendation of the TSO, they have came up with this kind of guidelines. What is this? It's more on the purchase of coal as well as airline tickets. Okay. Can we have the next slide? Okay, next slide, please. Hello. Okay. I'll start with the purchase of all petroleum oil lubricants. Okay. Sabi ko kanina, from 2003 to October 27, 2016, 16, no guidelines for retail, only bulk purchase. Ibig sabihin, almost all of us, DBM, civil service, COA, LGUs, whatever, and other regulatory bodies, we, we, di- we have no guidelines. We did not follow guidelines. So we continue to exist by just buying retail poll based on our needs. So with these guidelines, GPPB Resolution 24-2019, there is now clear-cut guidelines. Anong sinasabi? Yung poll requirements is not exempted from being included in the APP. It shall be included in the APP, including foreseeable emergencies based on historical records. Now, we are allowed to directly purchase from any available retailers, dealers, or gas stations at retail pump price. So it's a very big development. We can now buy retail, the poll, from available retailers, dealers, gas stations provided at retail pump price. And when we do purchase the poll, it shall be intended for official government vehicles and equipment, not for stocking, but for immediate consumption. Because if you keep on stocking for the generator, you can have many problems. It can be the cause of fire, or it can go somewhere else. Okay. And finally, another development is the payment is also relaxed. It can be made through cash advance if your cashier has still balance sa cash advance, or both bulsa usa. Use your own money and have it reimbursed later, and other allowable payment modalities. What are some example of payment modalities? For example, credit card that is visited, or you can have it done through GCash. But take note, because I think COA has another issuance about that. So I repeat, when you talk about retail purchase of poll, we should be happy because it is now allowed. But just remember, it should be at retail pump price and only from available retailers, dealers, or gas stations. It should be for official government vehicles and equipment for immediate consumption. But it can be paid through different modes of payment modalities, including cash advance reimbursement. Okay, so next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, this is now about the airline tickets. What about the airline tickets? So the same, the airline tickets shall be for official travels only, domestic and abroad. It is not exempted. It shall be part of the APP to include also foreseeable emergencies based on historical needs. This time, what makes it different from poll? The direct purchase is allowed only from any commercial airline, meaning only from PAL, Cebu Pacific, AirAsia, at fairly reasonable rates. So very debatable at the time before it was finalized. Because if you buy from agency, you have all the comforts, they will arrange for you any changes in flight, availability of seats, and you can choose also the reasonable price. But for a start, this is very, very excellent considering that we can now purchase from commercial airline. Unlike before, kanya-kanya tayo, we did not do it through public bidding, agency, so we were at different directions. Ngayon, at least we are now guided by these conditions. And it shall be in accordance with the existing rules and regulations governing local and foreign travel. So I repeat, when you talk about airline tickets, we can now directly purchase, but it should appear in the APP and it should be bought only from commercial airline at fairly reasonable rates. It is applicable only for official, local, and foreign travel. Okay, next. Hello. Next slide. Can we go back? Can we go back to NGO? I will dispense with the discussion of this one. This is part of the first day topic. Okay, next. Can we go back to the previous? Hello, Jen, can we go back to NGO?
Yes, ma'am. Opo. We're just browsing po the other slides po.
Okay.
Po. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll just start discussion about the NGO. Normally, if the General Appropriations Act in the case of national, or in the case of local, if your appropriations ordinance has earmarked a certain amount for NGO, then that should be followed. It means, katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, yung pre-selection is sometimes dictated by the law. So it should be followed. So we should take note that anybody who claims that I am an NGO, pwede na sila. Because we have a rule that the NGO shall be registered with SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission. So meaning, not just anybody who claims to be an NGO, but hanapin nyo, are you registered with Securities and Exchange Commission? If the NGO is a cooperative, hanapin nyo, are you registered with the CDA? Okay. So in both cases, the interest of the government is foremost. We should protect the interest of the government from any fly-by-night NGO. Okay, so yun ang sinasabi ko. So the PA may opt to conduct public bidding or enter into MOA with an NGO. So the BAC shall invite at least 3 prospective NGOs to submit sealed presentations with complete project proposals. Upon the determination of the LCRB, so meaning you go through the process, and after submission and evaluation of eligibility documents, the PE shall enter a MOA with an eligible NGO. So this is applicable to goods, infrastructure, and consulting services. Okay, next. Next slide. So another one is community participation. What makes community participation different from an NGO? Yung community participation, medyo in terms of scope, medyo mas smaller siya compared sa NGO. Why? Because it is the concern of a specific LGU. Hello, nawala. It's the concern of a specific LGU to involve a certain cluster or a certain stratum in the society or of that municipality. For example, out of school youth or mothers who are not employed, you can give them employment. For example, you train them, and the very purpose is at the end of the project, they can earn their money and at the same time contribute income to the LGU. And normally, yung community participation, they are allowed to participate in simple infrastructure, including non-consulting services. Itong pangatlo, it is really envisioned for sustainability or to achieve certain specific social objectives. Yung sinasabi ko kanina. Okay, to reduce drug addiction, okay, the mga out of school youth, you teach them, you train them to come up, for example, with a certain development project, and eventually it can be up for sale online. So hitting 2 birds with 1 stone, they get employed or they earn their income, and at the same time the LGU gets additional income, and at the same time maintains peace and order. Okay. So you can have more on that. You just refer to the references cited there. Okay. Let's go back to Defense Cooperation Agreement. Backward pa. Okay. Itong Defense Cooperation Agreement, di ba we're aware that the AFP has its own AFP modernization program. So this was already approved by President. And with that approval, it goes with it the delegation to the Secretary of National Defense to enter into a DCA with other countries. So the Secretary of DND provided he shall see to it that foremost is the interest of the country, to protect the interest of the country. So if he says that the capability is not available locally, then it can enter with the Defense Cooperation Agreement. It's applicable to goods and infrastructure, consulting services, I mean. Okay. Next, yung kuan, inventory-based, defense inventory-based items. Okay. Same with DCA, the DND is already delegated and he can directly negotiate with the supplier or manufacturer on defense inventory-based items. Example, bullet, bala kung sa ato binisaya pa. Those from Cebu, they call it bala. We don't have any bullet manufactured in the Philippines in accordance with the desired standard. So there were years, I do not know this year, there were years where we purchased our bullets from Bosnia. Kasi doon lang natin nakikita yung quality and desired standard and the performance also. And at the same time, we need also to check the compatibility, interoperability, and sustainability. Yun ang titingnan ng Secretary of National Defense. Okay? And the prospective bidders had fully and satisfactorily implemented a contract of the same item with DND or any its attached agent. Meaning, it has already an experience dealing transactions with the DND and its attached agent. And naturally, we require the performance security. Especially kung mamahalin. For example, yung submarine, we're not manufacturing submarine. For example, yung mga firefighting equipment or warplanes, siguro we can say, okay, Russia is doing that, Israel is doing that, but Philippines is not doing that. So the Secretary of National Defense can immediately directly negotiate with those countries. Okay, last one. The last one is United Nations. Yung pinaka-last. Okay, this one. So now that we're under pandemic, I think you've heard about COVAX. We always hear that COVAX, okay. So as part of the United Nations Agencies, International Organization, or IFI, they allow procurement in small quantities of off-the-shelf goods such as vaccine, for example. If you have read in the newspaper, ang raming vaccine pala natin nag-expire, but COVAX had made an assurance that they are willing to replace it with new ones. So before na mayroong, ano ba yung sakit before sa pandemic? So countries were allowed to buy from United Nations in small quantities or specialized products such as a vaccine. Provided those are not locally available as certified by the government. Siyempre, we talk about vaccine for For COVID-19, wala tayong ganun, wala tayong capability until now. So we buy it from direct from manufacturers and also from United Nations in small quantities. Okay. Okay, next. Next slide, please. Okay, sige pa. Itong alternative documentary requirements, sabi ko kanina, I will not discuss that because it's already redundant. That's part of the discussion in day 1. Ito namang performance and warranty securities, parang checklist rin you have and warranty security. It's good to know the difference between performance security and warranty security. And I would include the bid security. Okay, the bid security is required from all bidders. So if you have 50 bidders, it means the law requires the 50 bidders to post their bid security, because any bid which is not accompanied with bid security will be rejected. What is the use of the bid security? The use of the bid security is a guarantee by all participating bidders that just in case one will win or he or she will win, he is obliged to enter into contract with the procuring entity within 10 days from the declaration of LCRB. Garantiya. How about the performance security? The performance security is required only from one, and that is from the winning bidder. Can you see the difference? Ang bid security required from all participating bidders, but the performance security only from one, and that is from the winning bidder. So what then is the purpose of the performance security? It's a guarantee that he will faithfully follow and comply with all his responsibilities as indicated in the contract that he signs. So, yun ang performance security. Okay, how about the warranty security? Kahit wala pa ang RE 9184, mayroon ng warranty security. Warranty security is to answer for hidden manufacturing defects. For example, you buy 10,000 rims. Siyempre, hindi makita yan ng inspector lahat. One rim, 500 sheets. But in the process of use, nakita niyo maraming butas-butas, yung iba colored na, hindi na siya white. So mayroon tayong sinasabi warranty security. And under RE 9184, for supplies, we have a warranty period of 3 months. 90 days. 3 months. Ibig sabihin, huwag mong babayaran ng 100%, mag-post sila ng warranty security for any hidden manufacturing defect. Okay, yung iba naman, okay, we'll just replace that. Okay, that's good. For equipment, ano ang warranty security natin? Hello? The warranty security is 1 year. So for PC, for aircon, for refrigerator, it's 1 year. And for infra, that will be dealt with on August 30. Okay. Mayroon tayo ritong, is it required performance security? Yes. Warranty security for highly specialized types of goods. Warranty security is required. Kung minsan, yung iba nagtatanong, Mama, about sa gasoline, kailangan pa yan ng performance security? Naku, nakahiya naman. Hindi na yan kailangan ng performance security. Inano mo na sa sasakyan mo, tapos naubos mo na, tapos mag-performance security, hindi na kailangan. How about sa catering? Kailangan ba ng performance security? Kinain na, wala na. So there are those na hindi na kailangan ng performance security. But there are those na kailangan ng performance security, such as two failed biddings, limited source bidding. Kasi this is bidding, so it involves higher amount. Okay, next. Hello. Okay. Oh, mayroon pa dito mga explanation. So for alternative methods of procurement under negotiated procurement, makikita niyo mayroong takeover of contracts, kailangan ng performance security and warranty security. Adjacent or contiguous? Yes. But for warranty, yes only for infrastructure. How about the small value procurement and negotiated procurement? Depende upon the nature of procurement. Yun ang sinasabi ko kanina. For example, shopping A, unforeseen contingency. Kailangan pa ba yun? Hindi na. Hindi na kailangan. Bakit? Ginamit mo na yung gulong. You rush to the referral hospital. Bakit mo pa kailangan ng performance security? Okay, how about warranty security? Depende rin on negotiated procurement, emergency, and small value procurement, depending upon the nature of the project. Okay, next. Okay. Hindi na ito kasi kasama na ito sa update sa alternative documentary requirements. Okay, I will not discuss that also. It's part of day 1. Oh, that's still part of day 1 about performance security. Okay, that's part of day 1 because when we discuss about performance security, it will lead us to discussing the performance securing declaration. So it will be redundant. Okay, we're down to the last knowledge check. Okay, Jen?
Yes, ma'am. Now we finally reach the final and last knowledge check question for today. So may I ask our technical team to flash our last knowledge check question. So the question is, in small value procurement, the omnibus sworn statement shall be required only for procurement projects with ABC above 50,000 pesos. Is it A, true, B, false? Again, in small value procurement, the omnibus sworn statement shall be required only for procurement projects with ABC above 50,000 pesos. A, true, B, false. So while we're waiting for the casting of answers through our Zoom polling feature, if you still have questions in mind, please let us know through the Zoom chat box. And for our Facebook and YouTube live viewers, you may drop them down through our comment section. So right now, we have 55%. May hahabol pa po ba? 60%? Okay. 65%. So we will be closing our poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let us share the result for this last question, please. Okay, so for the result, we have A, true, 79%, and B, false, 21%. So the correct answer is letter A, true. Ma'am Annabelle, please elaborate po the correct answer.
Okay. True is true. True is correct. Thank you. Why? Because even if it is 50,000 and below, the omnibus sworn statement shall still be required, considering that before it became an OSS, there were individual documents that should be notarized and now compressed in OSS. So, kailangan talaga ng omnibus sworn statement because in that omnibus sworn statement, there are many concerns that the bidder will include. For example, full disclosure of relations, at saka authenticity or giving authority to the back regarding its document. So it's true. So it doesn't matter.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Annabelle. So I guess that's the end of our discussion. Okay. Okay, that ends our discussion proper for today's learning session. So again, ma'am, thank you very much. So at this juncture, before we proceed to our open forum, let us first watch a short audiovisual presentation on government procurement. You may also take a short bio break, and we'll see you in a short while. Thank you. Okay, I hope everyone is back. Again, that was a short audiovisual presentation on government procurement. For more quick guide in government procurement and other related short videos and audiovisual presentation, you may visit our official website. It's www.gppb.gov.ph. So at this point, we'll now proceed with the open forum. So please
Okay.
be reminded that questions which are initially gathered from the Zoom chat box and from our Facebook and YouTube live streaming comment sections are filtered, as our resource speaker shall only be answering related to our today's learning session. Nevertheless, rest assured that all questions raised and received are documented, which shall form part of our frequently asked questions. So once again, let us have our resource speaker, Ma'am Annabel M. Atilio. Ma'am?
Yes. Hello, Jen. So,
Yes.
natutuwa ako yung sa last question. Yes, the answer is true. siguro, siguro gutom na. Okay, the
So
answer
ma'am,
is true.
we'll proceed na po to our first open forum question.
Okay, okay.
So for the first question,
Bakit hindi ko makita sandali?
how about in infrastructure? Can I use brand names of materials?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Okay. In the first place, Section 18 is general in nature. Therefore, it applies to goods and infrastructure. If we want the spirit of competitiveness to be present, therefore, we should not indicate the brand name. The brand name. And generally, that is the rule. But since it falls under infra, you better ask that question on August 30. Okay. No brand name, but pertaining to infra, you can further ask that next week. To give courtesy to the speaker who is assigned really in infra. Okay? I cannot hear you. Hello?
Hi ma'am, sorry.
Okay.
So okay, next question please. So for this situation, bidding has already been conducted, and during post-qualification period, the Secretariat found out that the ABC they have posted in the ITB and at PhilJeps is higher than the actual ABC, because instead of posting only the cost of materials, the project shall be done by admin. The labor cost and other amount has been included in the ABC. What should be the remedy for this? Are we allowed to cancel the contract and repost it?
Okay, I'll reserve my question. Wait for August 30 because that is about public bidding or competitive bidding.
Okay, so for the next question,
okay.
does the most advantageous price for the government means that it is always the lowest calculated bid offered?
Very good question. Very good question. Why? It's a myth. It's a fallacy for people to say that those procurement in the government is of bad quality because they have a misconception that the lowest price shall always be the lowest bidder. Okay. As I told you, there is now a change, great change from minimum requirements to necessary requirements. And it all starts in procurement planning. You should be vivid in your technical specifications because what you plan is what you finally purchase. It doesn't mean that if that is the lowest price, the government buys that What is important, although this is now in competitive bidding, what is important is in the stage of competitive bidding, there is still one last stage, which is post-qualification, where you have to check whether the product conforms to your specification. Therefore, if it conforms, you get a bad product because you have a bad planning. I repeat, you get a product because that is the quality of product that you plan. But I beg to disagree that the lowest price is always the winning bidder, because that is still second to the last. Being a lowest bid, there is still a process of sanitization post-qualification. Even if you have the lowest price, but technically, if your products do not conform with the specifications that you have laid down during the procurement planning, then you will not win. Okay? So, worded differently, when you say most advantageous to the government, it does not refer only to cost. How about the performance? How about the functionality? All those will be considered when you buy the product. But as I said, if you have a well-laid plan, you did your procurement planning with premeditation, procurement procedures will just follow smoothly. So be serious with your procurement planning, because what you get is what you plan ahead. Okay. Yes, Jen, next question.
Thank you po, ma'am. So for the next question, is advance payment up to the full cost of the contract price applicable only to COVID-19, or is it applicable to all negotiated procurement emergency cases transactions?
Okay, very good question. So we said that advance payment under normal circumstance is applicable only first, infrastructure 15%. Then in times of calamity, 15%. Mayroong qualifications ng tatlo. Then we have due to industry practice, 50%. Yung sa mga trainings venue. But with the declaration of a state of calamity due to COVID-19, that is the only exception that advance payment may be made up to the full cost of the contract. The others, walang sinasabi na qualification. Okay.
Thank you very much po, ma'am. So for the next question, we have, what about the hiring of consultants for the formulation of climate and disaster risk assessment? Can we resort to negotiated procurement scientific services?
Individual consultants. Diba meron tayong isa? One mode of procurement under negotiated procurement is hiring of individual consultants. So it falls under the hiring of individual consultants. Siguro I will expound more. When we talk about goods, siguro na-discuss ito sa first day. Dinefine ang goods, dinefine ang consulting services. Doon sa goods, sinasabi na yung goods refers not only to items, supplies that we can touch and handle. Mayroong connectivity doon and general support services, such as security, hauling, maintenance of our equipment, messengerial, etc. So that falls under goods. Ang consulting services, sinasabi naman natin, it's a type of service where the needed expertise needed by the organization is not obtaining within the organic personnel of the organization, then you may hire a consultant. Question, it doesn't follow that pag sinabi natin highly exceptional, for example, a barangay or a municipality in that case, if you are given a huge amount of national funds to undertake a big project and you don't have an engineer, so it means you need somebody who can oversee the construction, who can supervise the construction, or with whom you can talk to and consult. So in that case, individual consultant ng civil engineer. But for the PWH, it's unbecoming for them to hire civil engineers because most of their staff are already civil engineers. So it depends upon the procuring entity. But the question on hand is hiring of a consultant regarding CDR. Okay, that is hiring of individual consultants. That falls under the hiring of individual consultants. Negotiated procurement. It does not involve a lot of steps or stages. Diretso kaagad. Okay. So next. Sir, ma'am, have I answered your question?
So I guess, ma'am, you answered naman po their question. So we up to the next question. What is the threshold for direct retail purchase of Paul and the lease of real property and venue?
What is this? For direct to retail purchase of all, there is no threshold. There is no threshold. Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can still hear you po.
Okay, there is no threshold. Actually, thresholds are present only in shopping A, shopping B, and small value procurement. So list of real property, wala. Conduct of training venue, wala rin. But,
Okay.
but I'd like to qualify, walang threshold, but be careful with the COA IUEEU. So dapat yung price hindi rin unconscionable. It should be within the prevailing price within the vicinity. Yes, next question. Next question. Okay.
For the next question, thank you very much po, ma'am. For Paul reimbursement, how much is the threshold for the fourth class LGU?
Okay, I just answered your question in the previous question. Walang threshold. Walang threshold. Basta, all you have to do is just meet or comply with the conditions that the pole shall be purchased for official vehicle and equipment and not for immediate consumption. It is for local, for official travel, for example. Another one shall be reimbursed. So that's among the payment modalities allowed. It shall be bought at a retail farm price. Yung mga conditions doon, walang threshold. Regardless of class. Okay.
Okay, meron pa po ba tayong next question? Okay, I believe that was our last question. So again, for the second question a while ago, as mentioned by Ma'am Annabel, we should park this question because it will be discussed on our succeeding modules. So if you have more questions, you may still ask them out by visiting our slido.com All you have to do is just type in the event code, hashtag government procurement PH, to which the GPP BTSO will answer through an issuance or through FAQs. So before we proceed to the next part of our program, I believe Ma'am Annabelle would like to elaborate more the correct answer on our last knowledge check question on the requirement of the omnibus warrant statement for procurement projects with ABC above 50,000 under the small value procurement modality. Ma'am Annabelle?
Okay, thank you, Jen. So we all agree that the answer is true. We all agree that the answer is true. That only projects above 50,000 requires the OSS, because most of those 50,000 and below do not even need posting. So karamihan yung sa OSS, doon talaga sa ABC above 50,000. Doon lang, medyo gutom. Okay.
Okay, so at this point, we would like to thank again our resource speaker, Ma'am Annabelle M. Atilio, for all the time accepting our invitation and for extensively and enthusiastically attending to the concerns and questions raised by our participants on our learning session. So, and to our participants from both Zoom and Facebook and YouTube live streaming who actively participated all throughout the course of our program, we thank you all very much, especially for staying with us. So, and again, for our winners, congratulations. And please check your emails or chat box and kindly provide us the details needed for us to ship your respective special tokens.
Jen,
So
ka na.
now, may we request everyone to please switch on their cameras to commemorate this learning session with our resource speaker. So please turn on po your cameras. Are we all ready po? We'll be having 2 shots.
Okay.
Okay? At the count of 3, we have 1, 2, and 3. On to our second shot. We have 1, 2, and 3. Okay, thank you very much po for opening your cameras and staying with us. So before we proceed to the final reminder, allow me to provide a recap or bird's eye view of our today's learning session. So today, we had an entire session on alternative methods of procurement where we had an extensive discussion on the various alternative methods which may be utilized in government undertakings and its appropriate use based on the prescribed conditions, procedures, and documentary requirements led by our GPPB recognized trainer, Ma'am Annabelle M. Atilio. So for the final important reminders, as part of our requirements for the provision, issuance of certificates, again, please do not forget to evaluate our today's resource speaker by clicking through the Google form link shared by our event secretariat in our Zoom chat box. So this evaluation form consists of 2 parts. We have first the general evaluation, which includes evaluation on the program design, support and information, and the presentation materials. And secondly, and finally, the evaluation of the resource speakers. So note that your response are editable under the Edit Your Response button for the daily evaluation of the resource speakers. So rest assured that all the information shall be utilized for documentation planning, reporting, and processing purposes only, and shall not be used by other parties other than the authorized staff of the GPPBTSO. So further, the GPPBTSO upholds with utmost respect the privacy of its data subjects consistent and in accordance with the provisions of the